if and when an eruption happens, there's enough seismic activity near the town to lead to concerns that you could see very destructive lava flows.
Recapping the top story, the South African Rugby Union has referred all inquiries about the break-in at the headquarters in Cape Town to the police. It has not been confirmed if this is where the recently celebrated Webb Ellis Trophy is being housed. For SFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Those were the top stories for this hour. Don't miss out on a possible car insurance saving. SMS out to 38462 for a quote Outsurance, where you always get something out.
CAF Awards nominees for women's categories and F1 on the right track in Vegas after parking lot passed. More details at 3:30.
It's in those minds young and aflame, in the reach of those dare to reach, in the possibilities dancing just for you, in the eye and ear of a dream in fever. Yes, it's in hope, hope in light pulled near and sent afar. Yes, it's in hope, from us to you. SABC Education, enriching minds, enriching lives.
Dear Africa Chipembe,
Siyabonga.
Realeboga. Thank you for experiencing the Rugby World Cup France 2023 in your language of choice on SABC radio stations and SABC TV channels.
This journey is fulfilling and exhilarating when you are on board.
The front row belongs to Africa Tonga.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
Don't wait for Black Friday to get access to great deals. SMS out to 38462 and ask Outsurance to give you a better deal on your car insurance. Ask them for 500 Rand cash if they can't beat what you're currently paying, or a massive 1,500 Rand if you've been claim-free with the same insurer for 3 years. That's out to 38462. That's a monthly saving on your premium or cash promise. You've got nothing to lose. SMS now. Outsurance is a licensed insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Aldrin Sampear, muhashi wa ntokoto na vutshila, wena masusa xivundza mayi, rito eka lava ri pfumalaka, rito leri hangalakeke na misava hinkwayo, ri haxa mbewu ya vutlhari. Xana imani anga ku miyeta kahle, imani anga miyeta ka mpfumawulo wa rito ra kuke. 3 to 6 hi tshama hi ri etindleve eka SAFM, hikuva u hi phamela swakudya swa miehleketo hi dya hi tlhela hi xipa. Ndzi ri halala Aldrin Sampear, halala wena la telekiweke eswitikweni swa vutlhari, a katingiwa etimbiteni ta vutivi, a sekiwa hi galaza ra vutshila. Loko ri mina ntombi ya mutonga n'waxombela makutlo wa madyafu la ri la tsundzuka n'wana hi ku heta, ndzi ku hluvulela xihuku, ndzi ri kula u ringana na ndlopfu. Halala Aldrin Sampear, halala.
Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
It is 8 minutes after 3 o'clock. Good afternoon and welcome to Beyond the Headline with me, Aldrin Sampear. Thank you so much for choosing us this afternoon. We're with you from now up until 6 o'clock. Coming up on the show this afternoon, we start off with the Statistician General, Risenga Maluleke. This is on the unemployment figures and the employment figures. The third quarter has indicated a slight decrease in the unemployment figures from 32.6% to 31.9%, so a 0.7% decrease there. So the Statistician General will be speaking to us about what they've picked up from this research and also from the data that they have. And then also at 3:20, we speak to Musam Dunga, political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee. David Cameron, the former Prime Minister of the UK, is back in politics. He has now been appointed as the Foreign Secretary. And I was just speaking to Bridget Masinga now, asking that if there's any president in our country that you'd like to see come back and serve in our cabinet, which president would that be? And perhaps maybe which position would you give them if you were the one to decide on who the former president is that you'd like to appoint and have is serving in your cabinet. We have 3 former presidents still alive. We've got, this is now speaking about the democratic dispensation, or since the start of the democratic dispensation. That is former President Thabo Mbeki, Kgalema Motlanthe, as well as Jacob Zuma. So who would you pick there to serve in your cabinet, or who would you like to see coming back to come and serve our country? You can drop me a voice note on 0614 104 107. And then at 20 to 4, we speak to David Rutt, Chief Economist at Efficient Group. Rating agency Moody's Investor Services has placed Transnet on a negative outlook. And remember that Transnet has now also written again to the Minister of Finance following the medium-term policy statement, where it was made clear that no money will be going towards saving Transnet, which they have asked for before. The analysts that we've spoken to had said that there is a possibility, they believe, that next year, when the budget is announced, that the finance minister could actually give Transnet some of the money that they require to try and balance their books. And then at 4:45, we speak to Holly Ray, South Africa's award-winning artist. As today is World Diabetes Day, Holly Ray talks about her diabetic journey. She is a type 1 diabetic, so she will be speaking to us at 4:45 to speak about the journey and also all of the support that she has been receiving so far. And then at 5:10, we speak to Brigadier Adlanda Mate, who's the spokesperson for the police. Sexual predators arrested in Gauteng. One of them, actually a foreign national from Britain, I think around 63 years old, for producing child pornography and distribution of child pornography as well. And there's also a trigger warning to that interview that we're going to be having a bit later on. A dog was also used in the production of the sexual material that these people have been producing. So that story is coming up at around 5:10. So that's what we have on the agenda this afternoon. Anything else that you'd like to place on the agenda on 0614 104 107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032. There's another story that we are trying to find a guest on and chasing this afternoon, and this is following the appearance of the SIU before Scopa on the appointment of a firm that was appointed back in 2014 to deal with an emergency that came up in Guyana. And that firm was appointed with a contract valued at 90 million. The contract was then extended to 2.2 billion. And later on, the government paid 4.1 billion. And the SIU has found that the contract was awarded to the company unlawfully, and there was also a corrupt relationship between the water agency, the provincial government departments, as well as the company's officials as well. So that conversation, hopefully when we do find a guest, we'll bring you that conversation. However, though, we will play the clip that comes from the SIU around what they have uncovered. 0614 104 107, a tweet at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
In conversation next with the Statistician General of South Africa, Risenga Maluleka. So Statistics South Africa has revealed that the country's unemployment rate decreased to 31.9% in the third quarter, down from 32.6% in the second quarter. Employment gains are mostly concentrated in the finance and agriculture sector, as well as the community and social services. To give us more explanation on this, we are joined by the Statistician General, Risenga Maluleka. SG, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What trends have you picked up in the third Labour Quarter survey?
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and let me greet the SAFM listeners and indicate that one of the things that we are picking up as of the third quarter is the fact that we are seeing the 8th consecutive quarter of gains on employment. And these gains on employment come on the backdrop of the fact that we had lost a lot of jobs during COVID-19 at the time. And as of now, you will remember in the first quarter 2020, we were sitting at 16.4 million. As of now, we are now sitting at 16.7 million. So we have surpassed the pre-COVID times. So it means while we were recovering over a period of time, we hadn't actually reached anywhere at 16.4 where we were in 2020 first quarter, because second quarter we're at 16.3 million. So we are seeing recovery on the side of jobs from pre-COVID, as well as growth in the fact that we have even surpassed the pre-COVID times.
So noting that particular growth, and also now that we've surpassed the pre-COVID-19 figures, have you been able to determine whether there have been a recovery in every sector that has been affected during COVID-19?
Well, because we don't do additions, we take the sectors quarter on quarter and they do make changes. But on this third quarter, the biggest gains were from the finance sector, finance industry, where we gained 237,000 jobs. It was followed by community and social services, 119,000 jobs, agriculture, 61,000 jobs, and construction, 53,000 jobs quarter on quarter. But construction, we should remember that it has remained depressed for quite some time. Although we did have losses in manufacturing, the most, followed by mining, they were not enough to offset the gains in employment. And the gains that we have seen in employment, plus the losses that have occurred on the side of unemployment, because unemployment has decreased, has then tended to lower our unemployment rate by 0.7 of a percentage point to 31.9% compared to the previous quarter.
And then when we look at the provinces, also noting that KwaZulu-Natal, Limpopo, as well as the Northwest recorded the largest employment increases. However, though, KZN still also has amongst the highest unemployment figures.
Certainly, one of the things we should know that unemployment is determined by the number of people actively looking for employment. So even if you have gained employment, the fact that you still have people that are looking for employment, the highest number of the unemployed in terms of the official definition are in the Eastern Cape, followed by the Northwest. The Eastern Cape is sitting at 38.8%. The Northwest is sitting at 38.6%. Yet on the expanded side, when you include the discouraged work seekers, the Northwest is leading at 51.2%. But back to issues, KwaZulu-Natal is below the national average, because the national average is at 31.9. KwaZulu-Natal's unemployment rate officially is sitting at 29.4. So it's below the national average. So you can see that the fact that jobs are being created, it doesn't mean that it doesn't experience unemployment, but it still remains lower than the national average.
Yeah, and when it comes to the expanded definition as well, KwaZulu-Natal sitting at 54.7%. Is it known what could have led to this as well?
Well, generally, it's actually 44. It's lower. The highest is in the Northwest at 51.2. KwaZulu-Natal is sitting at 44.7. Actually, KwaZulu-Natal and the Northern Cape have a 15% difference between the official and the expanded. And this is largely caused by the fact that when you see a larger jump, like in KwaZulu-Natal, all the way to a larger expanded unemployment rate, it's caused by a higher number of discouraged work seekers. So you have more people, you have people actively looking for employment, but the numbers of those who are discouraged are relatively higher.
And just in conclusion, once again, black people or black Africans remain the most vulnerable, with the highest unemployment rate per the what do they call it again? Per the geography of the country.
Certainly, when you look at black Africans, their unemployment rate is higher than the national average. And indeed, for black African women, it's even worse. What happens is that women in general do experience higher unemployment rate than men, but black African women are much more vulnerable to labor markets. It's even the same for youth, so it's even more when you are black African and you are young, especially between ages of 15 and 24. But even as you go to ages as far as 34, you are vulnerable to labor markets.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Risenga Maluleka, who is the Statistician General of the country.
Open the Absa Cash Invest Tracker account and earn the best rates in the market. More than the top 10 money market funds' average returns. Enjoy unmatched advantages at an interest rate of 8.9% per annum. Plus, if you open your account today, you could win your share of 15 million rand in luxury travel experiences for two. Yes, you heard right. A trip for you and your partner. My bank does that. Open yours today in less than 5 minutes on the banking app, at your nearest Absa branch, or consult your private banker or call 0860 111 515. Absa is an authorized FSP and a registered credit provider. T's and C's apply.
28 years ago, two great outfits of global rugby met in the Rugby World Cup final.
The Springboks and the All Blacks.
The Boks had a good day in the office in 1995 and lifted the Webb Ellis Cup on home soil. Amabokoboko have silenced the All Blacks once again.
At the Rugby World Cup Final France 2023 in search of their fourth title. La la Zanzi Afrika.
Back-to-back victors and four-time champions of the Rugby World Cup.
An extra seat has been booked for a flight back to Africa Tonga for the Webb Ellis Cup to travel with the world's best rugby national team. Amabokoboko. Congratulations to the Springboks.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
21 minutes after 3 o'clock, the IEC is on a mission to encourage all eligible South Africans to register to vote this coming weekend. The Commission will be holding its first national voter registration weekend ahead of the 2024 general elections this coming weekend. The homeless South Africans who are 18 and older who have not registered to vote are also urged to do so. SABC News politics reporter Busi Chimombe took to the streets of Johannesburg and spoke to those who have no formal housing, who say they are eager to make a difference with their vote. Take a listen.
The findings into our SCM investigation, as stated, there was in August 2014 the letter of appointment to the deviation from the normal procurement process for 90 million.
Apologies for that. That is the wrong audio that we're playing there. The audio that we actually want to play is from Busi Chimombe, SABC News reporter, and this is on the IEC encouraging eligible voters to go to register to vote and also participate in the elections that will be taking place in 2024. Okay, we don't have that clip as yet, but in the meantime, let's take some of your voice notes on 0614 104 107.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Zero here. Absolutely nobody. Absolutely nobody. They are all the same. They have no service. All of them. I mean, all of them. Nobody I would pick. Thanks, Aldrin. Zero in Bramfish.
Aldrin, good afternoon. It's Vincent Risumati here in Meyerton. I'm sorry to speak off topic. I'm just commenting on the issue of the judge that has been appointed to go and sit at the International Court of Justice, our own judge. I'm thinking that, we are the crime capital of the world, and we export judges to go and attend to international criminal issues. And our country is burning right now. So I'm thinking what a country of paradoxes, we are. We are an amazing country. We can export talent, to the international arena, while our own country is burning here. I just felt I must get it off my chest. It's Vincent here in Merton.
Hey, Adrian, I hope you're right. The one and only one. What akadunuzi phansi enkandla. Jay-Z gedlehlekisa umhlanganyelwa. Zuma amasi ngapha inyama nangapha. Umntaka mamzobe madoda. Awuswanini madoda. Buya load shedding, unemployment, ARVs, the architect, the father of the BRICS partnership. The one and only one. Jacob Gedlehlekisa Zuma. Hey, I want him to come and serve to my cabinet as I will be a president. Thank you.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Sure, a lot of people would disagree with you, but let's see what they have to say. Which president would you like to see come back to cabinet? And this is based on the next conversation that we are about to have with Musa Mdunge, political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee. We examined David Cameron's return to UK politics following his appointment as Foreign Secretary. Some say it is rare for a former Prime Minister to make such a prominent return to government, and his appointment caught political observers off guard. But what is Rishi Sunak trying to do here? For more analysis on this, we are joined by Musa Mdunge. Musa, quick one. Did anyone actually expect this to happen? A former Prime Minister coming back to serve in cabinet, and he has a successor on that. And also considering, for instance, how David Cameron left.
No, good afternoon, Aldrin. No, indeed, no one expected this. Even the best of the fakest prophets who are popular would not have called the return of David Cameron back into active politics at this time. No one saw it at all.
And here's my thing, though, is that he gets appointed to the Foreign Secretary desk. Yet when he was Prime Minister, he actually resigned because of Brexit and how he couldn't implement what the people of the UK have decided when it comes to Brexit after those polls. What role would he be playing now?
Well, indeed, David Cameron we must remember is associated with the period of compassionate conservatism, and he was very crucial in remaking and rebranding of the Conservative Party when he came into power as its leader in 2005, during a period when Tony Blair had won his third election, and it seemed like the Conservative Party had no answer towards Blair's popularity. And so, what we see Rishi Sunak trying to do here is certainly, go back and try and rekindle old magic and see if with David Cameron and his support, he is able to rebrand the Conservative Party, especially following the failure of the King's Address in really, painting a picture of what is this big issue that Rishi Sunak is going to resolve in terms of his next year and his time in office, where we know he's moving towards that 2024 election, and we see where the polls are moving, certainly not in the direction that Rishi Sunak would like.
And again, going back to this point around the Brexit, because David Cameron was campaigning for people to remain, and of course, he was outvoted. But now, as he comes back, is there an indication at all that there's a possibility of a renegotiation with the European Union, and possibly that we see another referendum?
No, not at all. Not at all. Remember that Rishi Sunak is a Brexiter as well. Mm-hmm. And Rishi Sunak was part of that core team with Boris Johnson, who are really promoting and pushing for Brexit. But not only that, he was critical to Boris Johnson's administration. So what we actually are seeing here is people of the opposite side really coming together during this moment. And it's more of a return of the Remainers into the center of power, where it seems like the Brexiters, when you consider Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, you consider Rishi Sunak, they've all failed in really positioning the United Kingdom in a post-Brexit world. So interesting that the man who failed to save the country from Brexit has been called to be its number one diplomat and reposition the UK post a Brexit world. What does it mean to be a great power in a time where it no longer has access to Brussels in the manner that it used to?
Yeah, and also considering the geopolitics that's currently playing out as well. Of course, the former Prime Minister comes with a lot of contact, comes with a lot of context as well, but comes with a lot of access to certain people. Would that play in the favor of the UK and also repositioning the UK? I know that you speak about internally within the country, but what about externally and how the UK is then seen?
Well, certainly, I mean, externally, because of the role he has played, remember that in terms of foreign policy, he does have a record. And this is where this move becomes so surprising, because when we think of areas such as Libya, where he was, he was number one and at the top of really pushing for, a NATO involvement in that country's internal conflict and the removal of Muammar Gaddafi. And we've seen the consequences of post-war repair that did not happen, mimicking what we have seen in Iraq or even in Afghanistan, where we've seen a return of the Taliban regime. And so, yes, he comes with context. Yes, he comes with a certain prestige. But I would argue that these were not needed for Rishi Sunak. He had in James Cleverly, whom he moved to Home Secretary, a person who was quite capable to build a strong UK message and strategy around certain issues. If you think of what is happening in Israel or what is happening in Ukraine, and so he didn't need it for that. But where it was effective was in shutting down the noise that was coming from among his backbenchers and among that grouping that supported Boris Johnson, who supported Suella Braverman. And Suella Braverman's removal has now been shut down with this appointment. So from that strategic perspective, this was a win for Rishi Sunak.
Thank you so much for your time. Musa Mdunge, the political analyst and PhD candidate based at the University of Dundee. So, any of our former presidents that you'd like to see serve the nation once again? Drop us a voice note on 0614-104-107. It's a minute after 3:30. Time for the news headlines with N. Musa. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Aldrin. In the headlines, food insecurity has been identified as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the treatment of diabetes in South Africa. That's according to South Africa Diabetes Advocacy on World Diabetes Day, which is being marked today. The South African Rugby Union has referred all inquiries about the break-in at their headquarters in Cape Town to the police. It has not been confirmed if this is where the recently celebrated Webb Ellis Trophy is being housed. And police in the northwest are investigating the death of a 40-year-old man in an explosion at a military base outside Potchefstroom in the northwest last week. I'll have details on these and other stories at 4.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour.
Good afternoon, Rob. Tell us what's happening on the roads.
Well, we get some heavy traffic going to Galulis today. There's been a crash on the ramp from the N3 highway onto the N12 East, and that's having a major impact. The N3 North queues from Helderdays, the N3 South even heavier with a delay coming down from the Alex side, passing Edenvale. A lot of traffic ducking out of the N3 South and taking Linksfield Road, so that is also on a jam as well. There are some roadworks on the Mike 1 South around Caller Drive, so motorists leaving Sandton stuck in a little bit of a queue as you head down into the Melrose area. Now, there is a breakdown around Ashburton, so it's one of those busy afternoons for motorists coming out of Pietermaritzburg on your way to Durban. It's a queue that extends right back to the Market Road exit. And Cape Town, a cracking day today, so expect delays around the coastal areas. The main road from Fisherkin to Muizenberg going north is particularly heavy. A lot of traffic heading out on the Kloofneck Road through Tamberskloof towards the Atlantic Seaboard, and on the Atlantic Seaboard, Victoria Road, very slow both ways around the Camps Bay area. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Good afternoon, Dumza. Don't laugh.
Afternoon,
Oh,
Aldrin.
you must give me the same energy. Like, hey, good afternoon.
Hey, good afternoon, Aldrin. How are you?
I'm great, Dumi. Tell us about the CAF nominees.
Well, so much happening in the world of football. Thank you very much, Aldrin. Talking about the CAF Awards, Banyana have been nominated among the Women's National Team of the Year for the upcoming CAF Women's Awards. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies have been nominated in the Women's Club of the Year category. This is after winning the Hollywood Bet Super League, the COSAFA qualifiers, and have qualified for the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League. And just taking a look at other categories, both Banyana head coach Desiree Ellis and Sundowns ladies head coach Jerry Shabalala have been nominated in the Women's Coach of the Year category for their exploits this past year. In addition, Banyana shot stoppers Kaylin Swart, who plays for JVWFC at club level, and Downs ladies Andile Dlamini have been nominated in the Goalkeeper of the Year category. Meanwhile, young Banyana starlet Tubelihla Shamase, who plays for UJ at club level, is on the shortlist for the Young Women's Player of the Year. And last but not least, Sundowns ladies and Banyana star Lebogang Ramalepe has been nominated in the CAF Interclub Women's Player of the Year category. In the meantime, still staying with football, Kaizer Chiefs football manager Bobby Motaung has not given a clear answer on whether there will be any change on approach in in their search for a new coach just to improve the merry-go-round at the club in recent years. Chiefs are now on their 8th coach in a space of just 5 years, with Molefi Ntseki most recently lasting just 4 months in the job. And Motaung basically blames the impatience of fans for their high turnover of coaches.
Boils down to patience and the plan. Now, with the pressures we're having now, with the mentality of people now, people are not patient. I don't know this culture comes from where. Chiefs supporters have always been patient, but all of a sudden, we have these issues of pressure now. Some of us are patient, some of us have a vision, but the vision can only work if people are together and have shared the vision, like the chairman was saying about the vision of building Kaizer Chiefs. 53 years later, it's still there. But there were bumps and rides, smooth riding, sometimes things didn't work sometimes. I mean, even in the past, we've had top players who lost, even Dr. Kumalos. There were seasons where we had drought. But we managed to soldier on and build. It's just the cultural change of today's people to bend things and to throw things and fight. We don't know where that comes from. It's a new culture, but I think together, if people can reconnect, we can have a vision and a focus. A vision and a focus is not an overnight success.
I'm actually surprised that Motaung says that he's surprised by the impatience of the fans. All I know is that Kaizer Chiefs fans just want trophies. That's it. But still staying with football, Manchester United midfielder Christian Eriksen is likely to be out of action for a month. He suffered injury in Saturday's 1-0 win over Luton. Eriksen was forced off in the first half with a knee injury, and it means that he is likely to miss United's 2 remaining Champions League games and 4 Premier League matches. In rugby, World Cup host France are set to host the Springboks and All Blacks in the next 2 November test windows. Le Bleu took on both teams at the recently concluded World Cup on home soil, beating the All Blacks in the opening fixture before losing to the Springboks by 1 point in the quarterfinals. And according to America's Rugby Championship, France have dodged playing in New Zealand and South Africa in July next year and will instead travel to Argentina to play a 2-test series after the 6 nations. In cricket, India's left-arm spinner Kuldeep Yadav has warned their semi-final rivals to expect the same level of performance at Wankhede encounter tomorrow. India lost to New Zealand at the semi-final stage in the 2019 World Cup and will face the same opposition at this tournament. Yadav has taken 14 wickets in 9 matches so far in this tournament and has picked out his line and length as the critical difference for his better performance.
I don't look to the videos at all. I mean, I don't believe. I never believe. Sometimes we just look at the batsman because I've been playing all the players from like 6-7 years, and we understand. And I mean, we just discuss what I can do better in every game. You know, the length of which I'm bowling. And that's working for me, you know. I'm not thinking too much about the batsman who's batting. Sometimes they can get over me, but most of the time I'm just trying to think about where to bowl and what sort of line and length.
In motorsport, Benny Eccleston says that the sport is finally on the right track for the 3rd time around in Las Vegas. Red Bull's dominant triple world champion Max Verstappen and his rivals will be speeding down the famed strip this Saturday past the lit-up landmark casinos and hotels in a nighttime spectacular, and we're looking forward to that. With that said, it's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumin Kapele.
Hello, Michelle. Hope you're well. You know, I'm not very lucky for online internet shopping things after Uncle Donnie got a second loan on his house to pay for some escort in Portugal's child to go to university. But listen, I'm addicted to this We Buy Cars auctions. Every day you can buy cars. My finger is jikkerig on the smells. I'm going to click anytime now because I want a fancy fast car. But my husband is making me so moeg. I'm sommer listen auction him. I nogal wonder how much I will get.
We Buy Cars, the best place to buy a car by far.
The beauty, power, elegance and speed of horse racing.
The passion at the heart of horse racing diligence.
Where these magnificent creatures and their skilled jockeys compete for glory.
Racing today.
Catch it live on Mondays to Fridays on SABC Sport on TTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
#Horses of Great Character. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
SAFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation.
The Nelson Mandela Museum, in partnership with the Nelson Mandela University and the National Liberation Heritage Institute of South Africa, will host the African Liberation Heritage Indaba 2023 second edition. The event will take place at the Nelson Mandela University Ocean Sciences Campus Conference Hall on the 14th and the 15th of November 2023. This year's Indaba will be held under the theme Decolonization and Transformation Project in South Africa.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Let's take your voice notes on 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. When we come back, we look at the decision of ratings agency Moody's to place a Transnet on a review for potential downgrade. And then after that, we speak to Pearl Makubani, SABC News reporter, to get an update on the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial.
Hi Aldrin, good afternoon. I would actually prefer two presidents to come back, President Thabo Mbeki and President Mutantli. And I would put President Thabo Mbeki in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and President Mutantli in the Ministry of Justice.
Afternoon, Aldrin and the listeners. I'm from the IEC launch whatsoever here in Polokwane. I have attended that, but I have seen that, IEC, I don't understand, it's no longer independent. And what bothers me today, again, we just received the letters, the notice actually, which says there will be water service whatsoever. I'm staying right in town in Polokwane. I'm telling you, we didn't have water for a very long time. If you get water, it's just now and then it's gone again. And it's been like that forever. So I don't know what is this notice all about to tell us that there will be service of the pipes and the stuff, because already we don't have water. And now what I have even realized that I don't understand, but anyway, let me rest my case about saying more. But this IEC thing, guys, sorry.
I don't understand. What's the link that you're making between the notice that you have received from the IEC and how you link that to a lack of independence about water that will be provided? I'm not too sure. Maybe if you can give us more clarity around that.
Hi, Aldrin. This is KM. I will choose Ntate Kgalema Motlanthe, and because they have even given him a short period to be in presidency, he was holding that position for somebody. Now I can say Mr. Kgalema Motlanthe is the relevant one who can come back to the parliament, because, and I don't even hear something like corruption around his head. Thank you very much.
Well, remember that Kgalema Motlanthe, when he became president, acting president did that, but he was president. He saw through the demolishment of the Scorpions. I'm not saying that he is corrupt, but I'm just saying that as per the Polokwane conference, he saw through that the Scorpions are done away with, and it's a decision, when I interviewed him, that he's still defending that it was the right decision to be made a couple of years ago. That is when I spoke to him. A couple of people saying that definitely former President Thabo Mbeki. I also have somebody who said JZat in the presidency, minister in the presidency. That will be an interesting one, see what happens there. And then there was actually somebody else who had said that not a former minister, or it is a political power, saying that I will propose Mulambo Ngcuka. This is Phumzile Mlambo-Ngcuka, even if she was a deputy president to Thabo Mbeki, she has knowledge and understanding the global economy and political maturity, etc., etc., etc. What do you think about that? 0614 104 107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
We're in conversation next with David Rutt, who is a chief economist at Efficient Group. So ratings agency Moody's Investor Service has placed Transnet on review for a potential credit ratings downgrade due to concerns over liquidity and refinancing risks. To give us a breakdown in terms of what this means, David Rutt now joining us on the line. David, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. What do you make of this decision from Moody's with this potential downgrade in the credit ratings of Transnet, and also considering what the Minister didn't say or do for Transnet during his medium-term budget policy statement?
Yes, good afternoon to you. Well, the short answer is it doesn't really mean much because Transnet is already so-called junk. I don't think anybody is going to lend money to Transnet in any event, but you can always go further down the ladder, and if it becomes even more junk, then of course they're going to have to pay much, much more if they want to borrow money. Maybe just a short summary on what's going on with Eskom.
With Transnet.
Transnet, yes. Transnet's outstanding debt at the moment is approximately 130 billion. Of that, most of that is guaranteed by you and me, by the Minister of Finance. They're making a loss of roughly about 5 billion or so annually, a little bit more than 5 billion or so. So they're getting into trouble every year, further and further into trouble. The Minister of Finance did not make any allocation in the medium-term budget policy statement or in the actual budget earlier this year for Transnet. Transnet simply cannot survive financially as it is. Transnet is crucially important to the South African economy because they get stuff usually from the mines, as an example, out to the ports. And if they don't operate properly, then we destroy the roads because the trucks are run on the roads and we can't get the stuff to the ports. And the ports don't even work properly, just by the way. So they are very, very important for South Africa. We need to do something about Transnet. At the moment, it seems as if they're trying to get private sector participation in the running of some of these railroads. But unfortunately, at the moment, Transnet only offers, say, 2 years contracts also, which is not nearly enough for the private sector. They need much longer contracts to recoup their capital investment. So we are, what can I say, we are in very, very deep trouble. So Transnet, I would say, is the next Eskom.
Transnet is the next Eskom. Do you think that there is a possibility at all that during the budget statement or the budget speech next year from the Minister of Finance, we could actually hear that there is an allocation being given to Transnet?
Yeah. I think before I try to answer that question, because I don't know, but before I try to answer that question, we have to understand that the fiscus or the national accounts of the Minister of Finance is in very, very deep trouble as it is. The Minister of Finance just can't keep on bailing out everybody else. And it's not only Transnet. Eskom is going to stand in the line for even more money. The post office is standing in the line for a lot of money. The local authorities, everybody wants more money. In the meantime, the Minister of Finance is getting into very deep trouble as well. And I can give you all the numbers, but it's getting worse by the day. Tax revenue is under pressure. The economy is not growing. There's huge pressure on state spending and all of that. Will the Minister of Finance make more money available to Transnet? I think it's basically inevitable. But the price we're going to pay is that the state debt will go up even further. And if we keep on increasing state debt at this rate, we are heading for some serious troubles. And if we continue like this, we are heading for a financial crisis. And I don't say this lightly. I can give you the numbers. If you keep on borrowing money the way that we are keeping, the way that they are borrowing money, the day is going to come when the private sector is going to say, listen, I'm not going to fund you anymore, or some sort of other crisis. And the result of that will be a much weaker currency, much higher interest rates, much weaker economic growth, and a financial crisis. So yes, we need to give more money to Transnet, but what we need to do, we need to fix the way that finances and the way that the South African economy is managed. And that is basically the issue in South Africa.
Yeah.
Maybe I can just add as well. We know what to do. But it's very difficult to do these kind of things just before an election, because if you do the kind of things that needs to happen, then your chances are quite good that you're going to lose support in the elections.
Yeah, I saw there was a report in the Business Investor about a possibility that the finance minister could actually start a conversation with the Reserve Bank to tap into our gold reserves as well as foreign exchange reserves. Do you think that that's a possibility at all? What are the risks, if anything at all? And some people already saying that, wow, I even thought that money has all been used up. But of course, that isn't the case because of the perception that people have of how our finances are being run currently.
Yeah, maybe just a short explanation on what the Gold and Foreign Exchange Contingency Reserve account is about. Basically what happens is that the Minister of Finance, as an example, there are many other examples as well. So the Minister of Finance will borrow dollars, as an example. He will give it to the South African Reserve Bank to keep in safe custody. The Reserve Bank then will create rands and give it to the Minister of Finance, and will spend those rands in the economy. Then one day, the day will come when the Minister of Finance will have to repay this dollar loan, and he will give the Reserve Bank rands, and the Reserve Bank will repay these dollars. So that is basically how it works. It's quite simple and straightforward. But what happens in the meantime, so the Reserve Bank keeps these dollars, but in the meantime what happens, the rand depreciates in value. So the dollars become more valuable in rand terms. But the Reserve Bank hasn't sold those dollars yet. So although on paper the Reserve Bank has made a profit, they have not really realized that profit. And that is what some economists and some politicians are suggesting, that although the profits have not been realized yet, the dollars have not been sold yet, the Reserve Bank can, in the meantime, give some of these profits to the Minister of Finance, and he can spend that money. But that will have some other implications as well. First of all, it's not realized yet, and the Minister and the Reserve Bank will sell these dollars before the due date of these loans, in my example, as an example, but they will also increase money supply, and that means that the Reserve Bank will have to drain this money out of the economy, and on that they have to pay interest. So the short answer is there is no free lunch. So this is just not an answer. And apart of everything that I've just said, there are actually agreements between the Reserve Bank and Treasury that the Reserve Bank is not allowed to sell these dollars in any event. Because of these agreements. They can only sell these dollars if they want to repay an existing loan by Treasury. So this is just not an option. And if it is an option, it will lead to all sort of distortions in the financial markets in South Africa, and you will simply shift the burden from Treasury to the Reserve Bank, and the losses of the Reserve Bank as is for the taxpayer in any event. So the short answer is this is not an option.
But if we look into, for instance, in the medium-term budget policy statement and what the minister said there, over the next 3 years, debt service costs as a share of revenue will increase from 20.7% in 2023-2024 to 21.1% in 2026-2027. Isn't that a much better option to rather go to the Reserve Bank, considering that the reserves are there, instead of going to the markets? And also, we know what our ratings are like currently.
Yeah, you're not going to get away from the inevitable. And the inevitable is if you go to the Reserve Bank and take this money and spend it in the economy, the Reserve Bank needs to drain it out of the economy. It's a little bit technical, but essentially what it comes down to, the Reserve Bank's got a mandate to keep inflation lower, and that means that they have to take excess liquidity out of the markets. And in that process, the Reserve Bank needs to pay interest. So somebody's going to pay interest on this money. It's either going to be the Minister of Finance or the Reserve Bank. And if it is the Reserve Bank, then the Reserve Bank's losses will be shifted to the Minister of Finance in any event. So there's no hiding. You can't use this money of the Reserve Bank and think you're going to get away from this. Somebody will have to pay interest on this money, and it's either Treasury or it will be the Reserve Bank, but it doesn't really matter because in the end, it is for the account of the taxpayer.
Thank you so much for your time. That is Davi Ritt, Chief Economist at Efficient Group. 0614-104107. You can also drop us an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Hi, Aldrin. Nashem, I wouldn't bring back the president who disbanded the Scorpions, with all due respect to the man. I would bring back the Jew of Tabombeke and Miss Pumzile Mlambo Ncoka. Succeed him. Thank you, Soviet King William Star.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Stuelo here in Kimberley. Aldrin, I just want to say none of the above. South Africa will do now with a young leader, a very matured leader. We are tired of the people who constantly sleep We are tired of people who take decisions for us who will not be in the future when we will be there. Only God knows. But they themselves are there advocating for us. For what? Because we will not be there in 2030.
Hi, SAFM. I will take back President Jacob Zuma and create a new department there, rural development, and make him a minister there because he is in touch with people, especially from the rural areas, and he's familiar with the conditions of the people there in rural areas. So, President Zuma, back there in cabinet.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
0614-104107. You can also drop us an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032. In conversation next with the Pearl Makubane, SABC News reporter, Sergeant Vusumuzi Mohane has gone through vehicle tracking data at the Senzomewa trial within a trial at the High Court in Pretoria. 5 men are on trial for the murder of the soccer star who was shot and killed in 2014. The defense is challenging the admissibility of a confession statement or statements that have allegedly been made by accused 1 and 2, claiming they assaulted and tortured into signing those confession statements. Mohane testified on times and routes travelled when Bongani Ntanzi made the alleged confession statements in June of 2020. Defense lawyer Tulani Mgomezulu will begin the cross-examination tomorrow when court resumes. Mgomezulu has also asked the state for tracking data from a different vehicle Mohane also drove. SABC News reporter Pearl Makubane now joining us on the line. Pearl, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. So what has been revealed through this tracking data?
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and to the listeners. Well, what has been revealed was that on the 19th of June 2020, Ntanzi was taken to Moroka police station, and that's where the first confession statement is said to be signed. And later on, then to Vosloorus Magistrate Court. However, the matter was not on the roll, and this is when Sergeant Mabena discovered that he left his keys in Moroka. Then they made their way via Alberton, made a quick stop for refreshments back to Moroka police station. After Moroka spending 2 hours at Moroka police station, they then traveled to Pukeng in Rustenburg, and this is where they discovered live ammunition in the residence that Bongani Ntanzi was occupying at the time.
Okay. Does this data at all actually corroborate what Bongani Ntanzi's lawyer has been arguing, or are there contradictions?
Well, so far, there's a stop in Alberton that, we know they stopped somewhere. Sergeant Mohane has not been able to recall the exact shop where these refreshments were bought, but they did spend a little bit of time there before moving. And also, there's also the question of the 2 hours that was spent at Moroka police station when they were waiting for the so-called keys that Sergeant Mabena had left behind. There was also another stop made in somewhere on the way to Pukeng. And, it'll be interesting that this is what the defense needs to question as to, during those times, what was happening, because this is what Ntanzi said happened, that he was assaulted in Alberton and he was assaulted again in Soweto. However, Defense Lawyer Ngomezulu has also asked for tracking data from a different vehicle that Sergeant Mohane was driving on the 24th. This is when Ntanzi made the second alleged confession at the Boksburg Magistrates Court near Magistrate Vivian Cronje.
Mm-hmm. Advocate Charles Mnisi, what was he able to unearth during his cross-examination?
Well, Charles Mnisi was objecting to Mohane referring too much on the paper and not recalling, his testimony as per what transpired that day. However, Judge Ratha Mokgwatleng did explain that, this is data that was asked to be read into the record, and no one can recall each and every single street that a person traveled and the exact route, although they can say we went from Soweto to Vosloorus, but not the exact turns and streets as what Mohane was detailing when giving testimony today.
Thank you so much for your time. Pearl Makubane, the SABC News reporter on the Senzo Meyiwa murder trial. 0614-104-107.
#SAFMBTH.
Afternoon, Aldrin and the listeners. Kagiso from Mafikeng. Look, I would most definitely bring back Thabo Mbeki and make him a minister in presidency, and make sure that all these government departments, especially your economic cluster, they report directly to the minister in presidency. I think that will sort of bring about the economic stability that the country so desperately needs. And then we can also try and bring about the Minister of Police or the Justice Cluster, under the Minister of Presidency as well, and make sure that he's responsible for the economic cluster and your Justice Cluster, just to make sure that the necessary stability that we need as a country is there, Thank you.
Actually, the Social Research Foundation had a survey that they published which indicated that the former president, this is now former President Thabo Mbeki's ratings, or confidence ratings, were much higher than that of the incumbent, Mbeki, scoring 57.5%. And this is an increase from the 53% he received in a similar survey that was conducted in March. But here's the other thing, though. Isn't it true that the incumbent would normally score lower because of crises that they are facing and because of the system that the people are living through while they are in the leadership position? But President Cyril Ramaphosa has scored 44.4%. It is 4 o'clock, time for the news with Ann Musa.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
In our top stories, food insecurity and its impact on diabetes, and Northwest Police probe death at a military base. Good afternoon. Food insecurity has been identified as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the treatment of diabetes in South Africa. That's according to South Africa Diabetes Advocacy on World Diabetes Day, which is being marked today. It is a chronic health condition that occurs when the body cannot effectively regulate blood sugar levels. Kirsten de Klerk is co-founder of SA Diabetes Advocacy.
The most pressing in South Africa would be food insecurity, so people not knowing when their next meal is and not wanting to take diabetes medication because of the fact that they don't know when their next meal will be coming. The other would be psychological support, so having a counseling social worker or a mental health support system in place to be there when you might be going through stages of diabetes distress or burnout. Education, a lot of the education that is being distributed would be in English and will be written, that a lot of people, English might be their third or fourth language.
The South African Rugby Union has referred all inquiries about the break-in at their headquarters in Cape Town to the police. It has not been confirmed if this is where the recently celebrated Webb Ellis Trophy is being housed. Police have confirmed the break-in but says detectives are still on the scene. SARU's spokesperson in a WhatsApp message said all questions will be answered by the police. The Free State Provincial Wildfire Incident Management Team say they are confident the Oppermansgronde fire will be successfully contained. A fire is rapidly spreading in a northwesterly direction towards Oppermansgronde near Koffiefontein in the Free State. The province has been ravaged by fires in recent years. The incident commander, Savage Breitenbach, says an additional team has been deployed to the area.
The local landowners have started constructing a temporary control line, and a backburn operation is initiated from this control line. There is high level of confidence that the forward rate of spread of this fire will be contained, or the forward spread of the fire will be contained, and with the additional working on fire teams that's available now to support the local community, that the fire would be successfully contained by late this afternoon.
Police in the northwest are investigating the death of a 40-year-old man in an explosion at a military base outside Potchefstroom in the northwest last week. Police spokesperson Adele Myberg says the man and two children were looking for scrap metal when the incident happened.
Police were informed of an explosion that took place that was reported by two boys that were looking for shrapnel metals in the military grounds. Apparently, whilst they were searching, they heard a blast and found the body of Mr. Barend Mbata, which is 40 years old. They then immediately ran back home to report the matter to the police. Police are still investigating the case.
And finally, the director of Gaza's largest hospital says 179 people, including babies, are being buried this afternoon in a mass grave at the complex. Mohammed Abu Salmiya says the patients died after vital hospital equipment failed due to power cuts caused by Israel's military operation against Hamas. The BBC's Rushdi Abu Aluf has more.
I talked to maybe the last remaining journalist inside the hospital. He told me that they are preparing now a mass grave for about 170 bodies. They were trying to get them out for the cemetery yesterday and this morning, and since they failed, they decided to bury them in a small courtyard of the hospital. He saw already 30 bodies are being put in the grave. He said the situation has remained the same. Very tense situation around the hospital with a few airstrikes and explosions around the hospital this morning. Even burying the people is a risk because tanks are surrounding the hospital. Now what the doctors are trying to do is to keep the babies warm because this morning there was heavy rain.
Recapping the top story, food insecurity has been identified as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the treatment of diabetes in South Africa. For SAFM News, I am Anne Musa.
Coming up in your sports, Percy Tau urges South Africa to rally behind Bafana Bafana. Cummins unsure of future as Australia ODI skipper. More details at 4:30.
SAFM. Guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Well, some good news coming in from Joburg. The crash scene on the N3 linked to the N12 at Galuli's interchange has been cleared. The big backlogs are making their way through. We do have a collision on the M2 westbound Crown interchange, and the run through from Joe Slovo Drive is looking quite heavy. And at the same time, very unusual, there's been a crash there on the Mike 1 South at Crown as well. So delays coming down from the Parktown side. N1 South heading down towards Malabongwe Drive, looking a little bit slow. Once you get past the Winnie Mandela Drive exit to four ways, Durban's Mshlanga and surrounding areas with 2 hours of a load shedding for this afternoon's drive time. That'll be busy, particularly on Mshlanga Rocks Drive. And Cape Town's N2 outbound, slow going towards the airport. There was a pedestrian crash just after Robert Sobukwe Road exit. It has been cleared, but the traffic coming out of town en route to the airport stays busy. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We are going to Durban when Bafana Bafana face Benin in the FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifiers on Saturday, 18 November at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Gates open at 12 p.m. and tickets are available for 50 Rand for adults and 20 Rand for children at Ticket Pro. Come dressed in your national colors to support Bafana Bafana to win prizes. If you are not in Durban, catch the game on SABC1 at 3 p.m. Also available on sabcsport.com.
SFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za. SAFM, leading the conversation. Beyond the Headline on SAFM, weekdays 3 to 6 p.m.
It is 8 minutes after 4 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, considering all of the adverse weather that we have been experiencing in parts of Gauteng as well as Mpumalanga, we speak to Lubabalo Majenge, who's a spokesperson for the Likwa local municipality. You may have seen on social media what looks like a tornado actually touching down in Bethel. This is in Mpumalanga, so we're going to be touching a bit on that. But then we want to also broaden up the conversation. So yesterday, also in parts of Gauteng, there was just this hailstorm and properties that have been damaged. This is now immovable properties, including immovable properties, and then also you have the cars as well that were affected and damaged during the hailstorm. And people already starting to complain about insurance, and I wonder if you've had any problems with your claims when it comes to adverse weather and the impact that it has had on your assets and how it has damaged your assets, if your insurance company was willing to cover the cost. So we will be speaking to Peter Nkuna, who's a senior assistant to the Ombudsman for short-term insurance, will be joining us for this conversation. We've also noted that a number of insurance companies have now removed cover. For instance, when you look at load shedding, they've removed cover for damage that has been caused because of a grid collapse, as well as load shedding. So that conversation coming up. And then at 4:45, we speak to Holly Ray, SA award-winning artist, as today marks World Diabetes Day, and she is a type 1 diabetic patient. So she'll be joining us at 4:45 to speak about her journey and also the support that she has been receiving from fans and friends.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
10 past 4.
10 past 4.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
Good afternoon, Webuti Aldrin Kuncha, and I hope you're doing fine. Man, there is this question I've got here. Since those people that they stole Lamadola, Famka, Mr. President, what is going to happen now? Maybe one day you can get in expert as was Chazera, because there's another picture that is trending on social media, a guy that he bought this type of Mercedes Benz, those big Mercedes Benz, man. Yeah, please, man, please, if you have any idea, Sipom Leche, me in Cape Town. Thanks.
Hi, Aldrin. I think the one former president that I would have in my cabinet is really none other than Jacob Zuma, the only president who kept the country working and the only president that was crowned the champion of infrastructure development. None before him and none after him.
Hello, Aldrin. I would like to see President Mbeki coming back, because from 1999 to 2004 service delivery, I think it was 100%. Economy was booming. The corruption was less. There was Scorpion. And there was this thing of Batupili. I think now he can do better than that.
#SAFMBTH.
It's 12 minutes after 4 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Lubabalo Majenge, who is the spokesperson for the Likwa local municipalities. Authorities confirming a tornado that touched down in the Likwa local municipality. Electrical infrastructure properties were damaged when a tornado accompanied by heavy rain and hailstorm hit Sirit as well at Tutukani yesterday. This has affected power lines and supplying electricity to Morganzon. Lubabalo now joining us on the line. Lubabalo, good afternoon. Thank you so much for making time for us. Speak to us about the extent of the damage that has been caused by this tornado. Hi, Lubabalo, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, sure. You can go ahead. Speak to us about the extent of the damage that has been caused by the hailstorm as well as the tornado.
Afternoon, Aldrin and the listeners. Yes, we can confirm that a tornado touched down yesterday, affecting mainly Seriti and Tutuka here in Standerton yesterday, it brought down electricity lines that are supplying the Mohan zone town with electricity. That town has not had electricity since yesterday, and it has just been restored this afternoon, just after 3 o'clock. This also affected the water supply in the area, as the water treatment plant did not pump the water to the residents. Many parts of the area are currently not receiving water at all, as the municipality is trying to restart up the pump stations again. The electricity has been restored in the town. There is only one area that has electricity that has not yet been restored in Putukani Township, where electricians are currently working to ensure that the electricity is being restored. It also affected the north shaft of the mine in Seriti, where it damaged the roof, as well as the mini substation that is fitting the north of the shaft in Seriti. We are also urging residents, Aldrin, that were affected, that has not yet been assisted, to contact the municipality. Our emergency lines are 017-712-5458.
How long do you think it will take to restore the water supply?
As I'm speaking to you now, the technicians are checking all the pump stations if they are up and running. As soon as the pump stations are up and running, they will start to pump water. It must be noted that when incidents of this nature had happened, that the pumping of water had completely went down. It takes some time to finally have the water reaching everybody, particularly the upper areas of the residents.
Okay, so as it stands now, you don't have like a turnaround time, more or less like 24 hours, 48 hours?
No, we can say that water will be fully restored in 48 hours.
In about 48 hours. Okay, thank you so much for your time. But Lubabalo, just a quick one, another one. The damage to the properties of residents, do you know the extent of the damage?
For now, we only know of one house that was affected in Tutugane Township, where the roof was ripped off yesterday. That's the only one that has been brought into our attention. We know that when there is incident of this nature, sometimes community members do not know where to report to, which is why I've given out the numbers that they must contact us so that we can be able to assist them.
Thank you so much. That is Lubabalo Majenge, who's the spokesperson for the Likwa local municipality. Listening into the conversation is Peter Nkuna, who's a senior assistant to the Ombudsman for short-term insurance. So as these climate events continue throughout the country, we ask our next guest if there has been a noticeable rise in short insurance claims for damages to individual content and companies' buildings as a result of disaster scenarios in recent months. Peter now joining us on the line. Good afternoon, Peter. Thank you so much for making time for us. What have you noted from the trends of the claims that have been received?
Good afternoon, Aldrin, and good afternoon to the listeners. Just a point of caution. Incidents like those of last night would definitely have not filtered through to insurance companies, and by virtue of that would also not have filtered through our complaint system. Just remembering that there's generally a lag, whether like or an incident like yesterday's damage would occur, the insured person would then approach the insurance company, have the claim processed, and a particular decision is reached. And if that decision is not pleasing to the complainant, or rather the insured, they would then approach our offices and as a complainant for us to deal with that matter. So there is always a lag between these things and what we would see happening in our office. But overall, if we go back even a couple of years back, with all the changes in weather patterns, we have seen increases in the rate of claims relating to inclement weather, and of course, in terms of the disputes that relate to those.
Does that give you an indication at all as well that how insurance companies have also changed their policies, and also some covers that they've had before are now being revoked? For instance, insurance companies, so some of them saying that they won't be covering damage that has been caused by load shedding?
That is the case indeed. With all, remember, insurance is a game of risk, if one can call it that. An insurer will only underwrite risks that have been seen to be worthwhile insuring, in that one does not run the risk of providing cover for things that may overwhelm that insurer. So if you see an increase in a particular type of loss, insurers usually go back to the drawing board to say, can we still afford to provide this type of cover, and to what extent do we still do that? This also has an impact on what we call reinsurance, because insurance companies themselves also are insured by reinsurers, and reinsurers can also say to the insurance company, look, we think this particular risk is too much, and maybe we are not going to back you up. And of course, if that happens, the insurance company also has to adjust its underwriting, and that may mean the cover that is being provided may become watered down, or there could be increases in premium, or there could be increases in excesses that are applicable whenever people claim. So those are the changes that would tend to happen when there is a particular change.
Because the thing is that you take the insurance and you think that the insurance company is going to cover certain things. That is what is explained to you at the beginning, and then all of a sudden things then change. The notice is sent to you, but the difficulty around that is also, I guess, the onus is on you as the client to actually read through the notice that has been sent by the insurance company, and then you decide whether you want to continue being covered by that particular insurance company. But from the work that you have done, and as well as the mediation that has taken place, have you found that there were times that the insurance companies were actually unscrupulous?
Sure. I don't know if I would want to use words like that. All I'll say is there are certainly instances where disputes arose due to incorrect and perhaps even unfair handling of claims by insurance companies, much the same way as we sometimes find that complainants may have also done things that ought not to have happened. I just gave an example earlier about the instances where, as a consumer, I may have overlooked to maintain my property, and then just because there's been a hailstorm, I want to put the damage that was happening to my house under the claim, using the excuse that because there was a storm, the damage was also caused by the storm. And sometimes it's quite easy to see that the damage was there long before and it has nothing to do with the storm. Sometimes it might not be that easy. So it's not quite as clear-cut as some may want to believe. Sometimes, yes, the insurers are on the wrong. Sometimes we as consumers are also doing things that we shouldn't be doing.
Thank you so much for your time. There is Peter Nkuna, who's a senior assistant to the Ombudsman for short-term insurance. So asking you this afternoon as well, have you ever had any incidents where you tried to go and claim because of the adverse weather that we have been experiencing, and now, of course, load shedding as well, and the insurance company outrightly refusing to pay out because they argue, as Peter has now said, that there was poor maintenance and therefore they're not going to be covering the damage to the property? What's your experience been like with your insurance company? 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 0002032.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Hello, Aldrin. I would like to see President Beki coming back, because from 1999 to 2004 service delivery, I think it was 100%. Economy was booming. The corruption was less. There was scorpion. And there was this thing of Batupili. I think now he can do better than that.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Good afternoon, and the listeners. It's Mike here. It's Mike in Cape Town. You know, Aldrin, on the presidents, former presidents, who we can say he must come back in the government or in the cabinet, I think Mr. Zuma can do better. Because just consider, even when Zuma was there was not even a lot of things. Even they say he was corrupt and do whatever. Of course, some people now they're just talking on the virtue of hatred, but Zuma was better. Zuma's government was better. You can even see a lot of people can even talk about it. Zuma's government was better. He might come back and then be an advisor or whatever. At least it's better. Thank you, Aldrin.
So which president would you like to see come back and serve on our cabinet? Sirit is joining us from Limpopo. Good afternoon.
Hello, Aldrin. Can you hear me?
We can. Good afternoon. You can go ahead.
Yes, good afternoon, sir. Unfortunately, I'm in the shop now, but I think you can hear me. Look, man, I was going to say, Aldrin, you were supposed to have said which president not to pick. And then I would say I will not pick Zuma. And,
okay.
I will take Thabo Mbeki.
Why won't you pick Zuma?
No. Zuma has collapsed this country, man. Country has collapsed because of that guy. And I will take Mbeki and make him a minister of finance. And then
the economist.
Yes. Mutlante, at least I will put him to be the minister of SOE.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Sariti there from Limpopo. Do you agree with him? 0614-104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM. Well, the SIU appears before Parliament in the Giyani-Mopani water scheme. Earlier on today, the Special Investigating Unit appeared before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts to provide updates on the investigations into the Mopani and the Giyani water schemes. One of the key takeaways from that appearance is the sizable increase in the approved budget projects from 90 million to 2.2 billion. This most affected by the lack of access to water in those municipalities. And the SIU appearing before SCOPA today explaining exactly what happened here, and just take a listen to the General Manager and what she had to say about what transpired.
The findings into our SCM investigation, as stated, there was in August 2014 the letter of appointment to the deviation from the normal procurement process for 90 million. In September it was extended to 2.2 billion, and in October 2014 a revised appointment letter to LTE and a service level agreement for Mopani water and wastewater emergency intervention, which includes Giyani water and wastewater schemes on a turnkey basis. Our investigation revealed that the second appointment was concluded without following any SCM processes. The project cost was increased from the approved budget of 90 million to 2.2 billion. We found it was contrary to the directives of the Minister, and it was without an approved budget plan. In light of the above, the appointment of LTE by LNW at a contract value of 2.2 billion was irregular and unlawful, and it was concluded without due regard to Section 217 of the Constitution, LNW's SCM policy, and the directives of the Minister. In terms of the findings into the CIDB compliance, it was found that the appointment of LTE by LNW in August and September were irregular and unlawful in that LTE was not registered with the CIDB to undertake or carry out construction work for public sector contracts, and LNW was prohibited in terms of the CIDB Act to appoint a contractor to carry out construction works without a valid registration certificate issued by the CIDB. Findings into the payments made by LNW. The investigation uncovered that LNW had paid an amount of approximately 4.1 billion to the service provider, which far exceeds the original contract value of 2.2 billion. Findings into the corruption investigation. The SIU identified a corrupt relationship between the LNW officials, service provider, and department officials. Findings into the value for money assessment. We originally looked at 5 sample boreholes. The SIU contracted the services of an expert to conduct value for money for those 5 boreholes of the 167 that were installed by the service provider. The report obtained from the expert quantity surveyor identified that there was excessive overpricing on the boreholes, amounting to approximately 7 million rand. Bear in mind, this is just the 5 boreholes that were sampled. And there were non-functional water purification plants, which had been 2.5 million had been paid for. The expert thus quantified that LNW did not receive value for those 5 boreholes and overpaid a total of 9.5 million rand, either due to the non-performance or the inflated project costs.
Yeah, that is Gina Pretorius, who is the SIU Program Manager, appearing before the Standing Committee on Public Accounts, SCOPA, earlier on today. As you just heard there, the company was appointed on an emergency contract, 90 million rand, right? 90 million rand. That is LTE Consulting. The contract was extended to 2.2 billion. 2.2 billion. At the end, 4.1 billion rand was paid. And then the example that Gina makes there of the 5 samples of boreholes. Can anyone explain to me how 5 boreholes can cost 7 million? And when I'm saying the 7 million, that is the 7 million on top of what the other cost would be to actually drill. So overcharged the municipality and the water agency 7 million rand for 5 boreholes. 5 boreholes. It's 4:30. Time for the news headlines.
Good afternoon. Thanks, Aldrin. In the headlines, provinces such as Limpopo, Northwest and KwaZulu-Natal recorded the largest job increases in the third quarter. The Free State was the only province that lost jobs in the same period. According to Stats SA, the official unemployment rate fell slightly to 31.9% in the third quarter. Home Affairs Minister Aaron Motsoaledi says there are over 500,000 uncollected IDs at their offices. He says, however, the figure does not mean that 500,000 people would be unable to register or to vote in the upcoming elections. And the Road Accident Fund says it's experiencing an epidemic of lawyers swindling claimants of their settlements. In the latest incident, an Eastern Cape attorney was arrested for allegedly defrauding a widow of a substantial amount of money following the death of a husband in a vehicle crash. And Musa Greg hosts will have details on these and other stories at 5.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And Rob Byrne has a traffic update for us.
Yeah, we've got load shedding in the Monument Park and Erasmus Kloof part of Pretoria today. That already means a queue coming south on the R21 from Fountain Circle into the Monument Park area. It also means some heavy traffic on Solomon Mshlangu around the Erasmus Kloof. Joburg's M1 south quite slow today, but clear down towards the Malabongwe Drive exit. And there's been a crash scene on the Mike 1 North just before Grayson. We had a big one there yesterday. Another one this afternoon. The queue not as big, but it is just starting to build through Melrose on your way up to Sandton. Durban side, heavy traffic for this time of afternoon on the N2 North at Prospecton, queuing up towards the M4, the Southern Freeway split. Cape Town, very busy on the beaches, particularly the main road, Fishhook, up to Cork Bay, and then a long queue all the way in towards the Muizenberg area, and a collision on the N7 North, just before you get to Plattercliff Road. That is backing traffic through Bosmansdown back to the N1 and causing a pushback on the N1 Service Road, running in front of Century City. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
Duming Khapele standing by with a sports update. Any chances of Bafana actually qualifying for the next World Cup?
Well, they're really hoping that they do qualify for the next World Cup because Bafana Vice Captain Percy Tau believes that with good support from the nation, perhaps they will see the dream come to pass. Now, Bafana start their qualification route to the next World Cup with a home game against Benin at Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban on Saturday before traveling to Rwanda next Tuesday. The other three teams in the group are Nigeria, Zimbabwe, and Lesotho, from which only the group winners are guaranteed qualification. And according to Dao, he says that support from the nation will be very crucial.
Want everyone also to believe in us. I think we believe so much in ourselves, and we also want South Africa to show that they believe in us. I mean, it does happen that we lose games or we draw games, but we still need the support to be there, because it shouldn't only come in when we win or we go to AFCON or to the World Cup. It should always be there with us. And now we will make sure that we do our best in the World Cup qualifiers to make sure that South Africans are happy.
Then Kaizer Chiefs football manager Bobby Motaung says that it's not a good thing to be changing coaches all the time, but the demand for results has taken over. Kaizer Chiefs are now on their 8th coach in a space of just 5 years, with Mlefi Ntseki most recently lasting just 4 months in the job. Following the departure of Steve Kompela, who was chased away by fans after losing to Free State Stars in the Nedbank Cup semi-finals, it's been a downward spiral for Chiefs as far as silverware is concerned.
I mean, the last coach we had who brought success for Stuart Baxter. After that, we brought in our own, which is also our passion, to bring in our own coaches. And for 3 years, we gave Steve a chance. Unfortunately, it didn't happen. We had to make changes. After that, we brought in coaches. It has not been happening. I mean, Ernst Middendorp was unfortunate to win the league. He lost it with a draw at the end. 1 point at the end of the season. He was on top of the league. Unfortunately, COVID hit us. There were a lot of challenges. You went to the Champions League final. We lost in the final. So in anybody's face or anybody's mind would be, well, we didn't achieve, we didn't succeed. But we're in the final. And to fight under those conditions of COVID.
Kaizer Chiefs fans just want trophies. Elsewhere, Brazil national team doctor Rodrigo Lasma says that forward Neymar is recovering well from a knee surgery he had after suffering an injury last month, but there is still no sense of when he'll be able to return to action. Neymar ruptured the ACL in his left knee on international duty, and he underwent surgery early this month and is undergoing rehabilitation. And because of this, it's confirmed that he will miss the remainder of the season. His Saudi club Al Hilal have also deregistered him from the remainder of the campaign so that they can bring in a foreign left back during the winter transfer market. In cricket, Pat Cummins says that he's unsure whether he will continue as Australia's one-day international captain after the World Cup, but is looking to return to the Indian Premier League next season in preparation for the T20 showpiece. Cummins, who will lead Australia into their semi-final against South Africa on Thursday, took on the ODI role with an eye firmly on the World Cup when Aaron Finch retired from the format last year. The paceman said that he was potentially interested in staying on after the tournament, but the decision will rest with coach Andrew McDonald and head selector George Bailey's assessment of his workload and Australia's priorities. Then finally, the South African authorities have given green light to the bare knuckle fighting championship, adding the combat sport to the country's sports and entertainment calendar. Now, the sport, which is based on punching without any form of padding on the hands, has been officially sanctioned by the Mixed Martial Arts Federation of South Africa. BKFC promoter Nelson Lopez Jr. is currently in the country to unearth new fighters. The sport, that includes female athletes, has spread to more than 40 countries, including South Africa, where trials were held to unearth new fighters by the promoter.
The trials were amazing. We didn't have any fake fighters, we didn't have any YouTube fighters. We didn't have guys that just wanted a free t-shirt and content for their Instagrams. We had real fighters. And I was really not surprised. I wasn't surprised because I know South Africa, I know African fighters are real, and no one is going to disrespect and come into a gym and try out when there's 50 guys that really know how to fight.
That's it. It's a wrap from my side for now. I'll have more in the next hour. For SAFM Sport, I'm Dumeng Khabele.
Dear Africa Chipembe,
Siyabonga.
Re a leboga. Thank you for experiencing the Rugby World Cup France 2023 in your language of choice on SABC radio stations and SABC TV channels.
This journey is fulfilling and exhilarating when you are on board.
The front row belongs to Africa Tonga.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it is time for a market update with Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. Makwe, good afternoon. Welcome to the show. Let's speak about STO Rage unaudited interims.
Afternoon to you, Adrian, and to the listeners. Yes, Adrian, the guys, they've got 97 properties. That is 60 in South Africa and 37 in the UK, with a combined value of 16.2 billion. And they've seen a property revenue increasing by almost 17%. And that's despite a tough operating environment, occupancy sitting at 89%, and the rental rate in South Africa increasing by 9.6%, and in the UK by 5.1%. And their loan-to-value ratio of 31.9%, Adrian, is very impressive, and they've increased their dividend per share by 2.2%, but their profits as headline earnings per share dropped 30%. But Adrian, densification will continue to propel demand when it comes to storage.
Let's look at international and local market developments.
A very good day in the markets, Adrian. The U.S. Treasury Secretary pushed back on Moody's decision to cut its outlook on the U.S. debt from stable to negative. She said the U.S. economy is strong and the Treasury market is both safe and liquid. And markets started the session with their attention being on the U.S. inflation report. And then what they've seen was that people were just looking into the report that could heavily influence interest rate policy outlook, especially after the Fed policymakers have said they are still not sure that interest rates are high enough to tame inflation, and investors welcomed to cooler than expected U.S. inflation. Breathing a sigh of relief, stocks and bonds jumped as the figures helped to reassure market participants that the U.S. Fed is likely done when it comes to raising interest rates. And locally, our Q3 unemployment dropped to 31.9% from 32.6%. That is a 0.7% improvement, but it's very sad that the likes of mining and manufacturing continue to lose jobs, and there are prospects of interest rates not being raised further. Those prospects are dented the US dollar, resulting in commodity prices going up, including the likes of oil and gold. We've seen oil going up by 0.7% at $83 a barrel, gold up 0.6% at $1,958, and platinum is up 1.2% at $878. The Dow is up 1%, S&P up 1.4%, the DAX is up 1.3%, CAC up 1%, FTSE up 0.2%, the JC is up 2%, with resources up 3%, our financials are up 2%, industrials are up 1.6%. The rand firmed almost 1.6%, is now at 18.42 to the US dollar, 22.88 to the pound, and 19.91 to the euro.
Thank you so much. That's Makwe Masilela, Chief Investment Officer at Makwe Fund Managers. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032 and your voice notes on 0614 104 107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
The only talk radio afternoon drive show that makes sense. Beyond the Headline with Aldrin Sampear, right here on SAFM.
Good afternoon, Aldrin and the SA listeners. It's Peter here in Kuruman. Just a week ago, we were celebrating our Springbok team's victory for winning the Webb Ellis Trophy. Today, there was a battlery at the head office in Cape Town, which is so disappointing, man. South Africa, we are really a state of the mafia.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. The leadership of COPE, they have failed that organization really, because COPE was promising. They started like a hurricane, but today they are finished. If you can check, all well-known members of that organization are gone. Smart Ngonyama, Willie Madisha, Mbazi Mashlowa. Today is Colin Makwele. The well-known member now who left is a Lekota. I'm telling you, we are just waiting for election, and then after election, we have to forget about COPE. Mkas Keshnandabe Village. Thanks.
Yeah, hey, I remember when COPE launched. When was it? 2008 into the 2009 elections. I'm just trying to recall now what their seat allocation stood at. But right now, COPE is standing at, I think, 2 seats in Parliament. And when they started off, I'm just trying to get the figure there, they were much higher than what they're currently standing at. Let me just quickly see on the IEC's result board. If you look in 2009, so 2009, COPE had 30 seats. 30 seats. It was the third biggest political party, and they managed to secure 30 seats, propelling them to the third biggest political party in the country. Fast forward to 2019, they only have 2 seats in Parliament. 2 seats in Parliament. Chukulu's joining us from Harry Smith. Good afternoon.
How's it?
Good. How's it?
No, good, Aldrin. Aldrin, one president that we were having before. I think the president after Nelson Mandela. Why? Because of we never heard anything bad about that guy, or we were still maybe gonna hear something.
What do you mean?
But, I mean, this a lot of scandals that this president that we're having.
When you say you didn't hear a lot of things about President Thabo Mbeki, what do you mean?
Not Thabo Mbeki. Is it Thabo Mbeki?
Who was after? Yeah, the person who was after Nelson Mandela was Thabo Mbeki.
No. Even Thabo Mbeki, he was much better, I can say. But he was much better. He was much better than Zuma. No. Zuma. I don't think about that guy, because even if some people are saying he was right, I don't know what they saw on the guy, because you cannot say that guy was better. Hence, if you check, there is this Nkandla. I understand, Aldrin.
Yeah.
These people, they can eat their money, because everybody, we need money. But that guy, he was showing everybody that he can eat the money. You understand? Now
Which
people
money
are
did he
complaining. Nkandla, it's our money, bro.
Yeah.
It's our tax money.
Okay.
You see, now people are complaining about Cyril. Cyril, because of Pala issue, they always complaining about it. That's the main issue. Better than that, but to me, Cyril is still better, because there is a lot of people who now.
But I also think that with the current president, there's an issue around transparency here, Chukulu. Because if you think about the campaign to fund him, the CR17 campaign, there's an issue around transparency. So we don't know who the donors were and so forth. And we can all say that, yes, an agreement was made not to reveal who the donors are.
Yeah.
But in the interest of transparency, which is the ticket that you came in on, I think that the president falls short of that.
But on this Ramaphosa issue, these people, they are too jealous to this guy. This thing, it happened long time, even if before he can. Even Zuma, there is such thing. But because of they trust the guy, they love the guy, they didn't reveal any secret from the guy. They revealed everything, pala thing, a lot of things. Because
but you're speaking now about the incumbent president, the person who's the president of the country right now. You can say that the former president, because even President Ramaphosa has made the same argument to say that if you look at the 2017 election campaign, the ANC's conference, he was arguing that with the 7 candidates that were contesting the elections, they also received funding from the donors. But now we're speaking about you as the president who came in on a ticket of transparency.
Why specifically to this guy? Because of
he's the incumbent.
No, you are jealous for the guy.
Okay. Thank you.
They are jealous for the guy. Let us be honest. They are jealous. But to Zuma, I don't think about that guy in my life. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you so much. Tukulo there from Harrismith in bringing up the Nkandla matter as well. And remember that the former public protector investigated that matter and did find that he unduly benefited from the security upgrades at Nkandla. 0614-1041-07. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032.
#SAFMBTH.
Hi. Next president I want to be, it's you, my son. You are a young guy and you can also run this country as well.
Oh.
Okay, bye.
I think being a president comes with a lot of pressure. It is, I don't know if I'd be able to do that. You must be cut from a certain cloth to become president of a country, especially considering all the crises that you're facing in the country as well, and also all of the vested interests that people have and the competing interests that there are as well, and everyone looking to the president because you said you want to lead the country, therefore lead the country. I want this, I want that, I want this, I want this. And having to balance all of those interests as well. 0614-1041-07. You can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086-000-2032.
#SAFMBTH.
It is 10 minutes before 5 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Holly Ray, South Africa's award-winning artist, who's going to share with us insights into the number of difficulties that individuals with diabetes experience as part of her diabetic journey. This as we raise awareness about diabetes, its prevention and management, as today marks World Diabetes Day. Holly Ray now joining us on the line. Good afternoon, and how are you doing?
Hi, I'm well, thanks. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you so much for making time for us.
Thanks for having me.
I have to say, the level of vulnerability that is required to actually share your story or any story that relates to your health, I think it is commendable. And I don't know how you actually got to that space where you feel comfortable to share and speak about your journey, and considering that you were diagnosed when you were 11 years old?
Yes, correct.
Speak to us about that. How did you get to that point?
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, when I was a kid, I didn't even want to tell people I had diabetes. I didn't even want to do my injections in front of other people. I would hide it, and sometimes I would, my sugar would go high because I was too scared to do my insulin in front of people. So it's definitely been a long journey of sort of self-discovery and coming to terms with the fact that I'm a diabetic and it's never going to go away. I think once you come to that realization, it becomes easier to talk about. But it sort of started actually during lockdown when there was this whole frenzy around, diabetes and COVID and, diabetics are going to die. And there was all this misinformation being spread. And I kind of realized that I needed to use my platform to talk to people and open the dialogue about what diabetes actually is, what it entails, who it affects, how it affects you, and the benefits of living a healthy life as a diabetic. Because, I also wish I had someone like that to look up to when I was young and diabetic. So that's been kind of the inspiration or the driving force behind opening up and becoming a sort of diabetes activist.
And as a child, as you said, the difficulty around that as well, and you don't want to see people, or you don't want people to see taking your insulin. Can you remember the first time that you actually did it in a public space, perhaps where there were strangers around, if possible?
Oh, I can't even remember. I mean, I would take my handbag and go to the bathroom to do my insulin. Now I just do it within the restaurant. Because if people are uncomfortable, it's their problem, not mine, you know. But I can't remember the exact time. But I can say it took me a long, long time to get comfortable with my diabetes.
Yeah.
So maybe when I was past my teens even, maybe like 19, 20, did I only get really comfortable with it.
In around your 20s. Would you have started your music career by then?
Yes. So I started my music career when I was 14.
Yeah. Okay, so now you are 20. You are a performing artist. People know you. Was there anything that said you perhaps not?
In terms of music?
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, even now, about 2 years ago, my doctor sat me down and said, well, just actually before COVID, so 3 years ago now, and he said, either you change your lifestyle and you make diabetes fit into your lifestyle properly, or you give up your lifestyle to manage your diabetes. So I had to make quite a big shift and quite a big change in my team in the way that we did things. I now have a doctor on call 24/7. He will travel with me sometimes if I'm not well, or he'll just be like on call for me whenever I need him. My team has all gone through diabetes education so they can, support me the best that they can. And then I'm also on a constant glucose monitor, which is connected to my phone.
Yeah.
And the entire team can connect to it as well.
Yeah. How does it affect you though?
It affects me a lot. I mean, when I'm on stage, I get a huge adrenaline rush, which often means a spike in glucose.
Yeah.
So by this point, I've learned how to manage that. I take a bit of insulin before I go onto stage. There's sometimes times when I come off stage and my sugar's really low and I need to get sugar quite quickly. But having a team that understands all the sort of complications that can happen and what to do in those situations really helps, because it's ignorance that's really dangerous to a diabetic, because you have to act fast in situations.
Because sometimes what happens with live performances and a live program, things tend to move around a lot. Do you think that you're going to be performing at, let's say, for instance, at 11 o'clock and, they're not running according to schedule and things are changing around, and the impact that has then on you, considering that you have a schedule when it comes to when you take your medication and insulin and so forth?
Yeah, it's very difficult. And I mean, as soon as you become diabetic, the first thing they tell you is like, you have to have a really regular schedule. You need to eat at the same time, take your medication at the same time. And I mean, I'm traveling all the time. I'm sometimes in a different city every night of the weekend. So I have a very irregular schedule. And like you said, events and stuff like that are very irregular. So, but I have found ways to manage it. I carry a cooler box everywhere with snacks. So I'm prepared for sort of every situation that could happen. And I'm kind of over-prepared sometimes.
Yeah, which is a good thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ever had an incident where it almost felt like this is a death scare that you're dealing with here?
Yeah, I mean, about a month ago, maybe a little bit more, I was performing in Bloemfontein. The performance went really well. I went to the hotel room, went to sleep, and I woke up in the morning, went to a radio interview, and then after the radio interview, I just felt so awful. Because I've had all this activity, and sometimes with diabetes, it catches up to you a little bit later. So you might have carbs and everything in your system when you're performing and afterwards, and that's keeping you going. But then it can even be like 12 hours later, all that activity can catch up, and you can actually have a sugar low. And I ended up fainting in Bloemfontein. And my team, luckily they knew what to do, but it was very scary for them. It was very scary for me. Because I was unable to speak to anyone and tell them like what was going on or how I was feeling. And yeah, I think I was like, oh my gosh, this is it.
Yeah.
But they rushed me to an emergency room in Bloem, and we managed to take care of the situation. But so I was very lucky.
And that is speaking now about the physical and the physical health. What about the mental health? Actually, I was in Zambia last week, and I met mental health activist, and the person was actually saying that he doesn't refer to it as mental health anymore, but he refers to it as mental fitness. So when it comes to your mental fitness, knowing very well that you have a type 1 diabetes and having this journey that you go through and constantly being in spaces where you are with strangers as well, how do you deal with that from a mental perspective to make sure that Holly Ray is still Holly Ray, but you're also able to exude the positivity and the confidence that is required?
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard. I'm very open about struggling with depression. And, diabetics are 70% more likely to suffer from depression and anxiety than other people. So it is a very big risk factor in diabetics. Also on a clinical level, diabetes or a lack of sugar prevents the production of serotonin, which is your happy hormone. So on a physiological level, diabetics are also more at risk of suffering from depression because we have less serotonin in our bodies. So it is very difficult. And there's days, I was speaking to someone yesterday where you have what we call diabetic fatigue, where you're just over it. You just want to have a holiday from your diabetes, and you can't because it's constant. It's every single day, every single hour. And it's something I think I, along with many diabetics, suffer from. It's just depression around our illness because it's never going to go away. It doesn't get better. It doesn't improve. It's constant. You're living with it 24/7. And it is very difficult. But I think having activities that make you feel good and people around you that lift you up and make you feel good is really important. And also feeling like you can talk to people and reach out for help, I think, is the most important part of having any sort of mental unfitness, let me say.
Yeah. But I'm happy that you're mentally fit as well. So thank you so much. And thank you so much for sharing your story with us.
Thank you.
That's Holly Ray, South Africa's award-winning artist and also a type 1 diabetes patient, as you just heard there, speaking about her journey. Perhaps you are also diabetic and you'd like to share your experience with diabetes, or know somebody who is diabetic and like to share their experience with us as well. We'd welcome that. 0614 104 107, and you can drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Independent and impartial. This is SAFM News.
Hundreds of thousands of new jobs created in marking World Diabetes Day. Good day to you. Provinces such as Limpopo, the Northwest and KwaZulu-Natal recorded the largest job increases in the third quarter. The Free State was the only province that lost jobs in the same period. The national economy created almost 400,000 jobs in the third quarter of this year. According to Stats SA, the official unemployment rate fell slightly to 31.9% in the third quarter. Stats South Africa's Rasinga Malulek.
We have seen employment in terms of quarter on quarter, and this is the 8th quarter in a row that we are seeing gains in employment. But one of the things we are observing is that it's the first time this third quarter of 2023 we surpassed the pre-COVID levels. Let us remember that in 2020, we were sitting at 16.4 million. We have been growing and been inching closer.
The Home Affairs Minister, Aaron Motsoaledi, says there are over 500,000 uncollected IDs at their offices. However, he says the figure doesn't mean that 500,000 people will be unable to register to vote in the upcoming elections. He says some of the applicants already have green bar-coded IDs and applied for smart cards. The Minister and the Electoral Commission briefed Parliament's Home Affairs Committee on the readiness for this weekend's voter registration drive.
Honourable members, when we announced that there are 500,000 IDs unconnected, in the minds of the public and the members is that if those IDs are not collected, 500,000 people will never register and will never vote. But the Deputy Minister has just explained that actually that will affect 135,000, out of which 10,000 were collected. The others, as he said, apart from people who passed on, who are 64,000, are people who are coming for the second time. And most of them do have IDs, but they are coming to apply for a smart ID card.
The Road Accident Fund says it's experiencing an epidemic of lawyers swindling claimants of their settlements. In the latest incident, an Eastern Cape attorney, Sean Masimla, was arrested for allegedly defrauding a widow of a substantial amount of money following the death of her husband in a vehicle crash. Masimla was recently arrested by the Hawks and is facing charges of fraud and theft. The fund's spokesperson, Macintosh Polela.
This matter was reported to us by the widow who felt that she was shortchanged when she got 80,000 rand of a claim that she had made for the death of her husband. She didn't know at the time that the actual amount was 500,000 rand. But what we're saying is that this is an endemic problem with the lawyers. People are swindled all the time. And some of these lawyers, and most of them actually, do not care what predicament has befallen the victims who come to them, really desperate to claim after the maiming or the death of their loved ones.
Food insecurity has been identified as one of the biggest challenges when it comes to the treatment of diabetes in South Africa. That's according to the SA Diabetes Advocacy on World Diabetes Day, which has been marked today. Diabetes is a chronic health condition that occurs when the body cannot effectively regulate blood sugar levels. Kirsten de Klerk is the co-founder of Diabetes Advocacy.
The most pressing in South Africa would be food insecurity, so people not knowing when their next meal is and not wanting to take diabetes medication because of the fact that they don't know when their next meal will be coming. The other would be psychological support, so having a counseling social worker or a mental health support system in place to be there when you might be going through stages of diabetes distress or burnout. Education, a lot of the education that is being distributed would be in English and will be written, that a lot of people, English might be their third or fourth language.
An expert on international law, Professor Claudia Dyer, says for the International Court of Justice to be effective, the court relies on cooperation by states and stakeholders on matters placed before it. He was elected last week by the UN to serve as a judge at the International Court of Justice in The Hague. His first assignment will be to sit on a case involving Israel and Palestine next year. Speaking exclusively to the SABC, he said the role of the International Court of Justice is to hear matters between states.
Currently, one of the cases before the ICJ, one of the cases in inverted commas before the ICJ, is actually an advisory opinion, a request for an advisory opinion concerning the situation in Palestine. The fact that the function of the court is resolving disputes between states, but also providing advisory opinions to organs of the United Nations or competent international organizations. The particular hearings of that particular advisory proceedings will actually be the first one in which I will sit on. It'll be I think on the 18th of February.
Top story, provinces such as Limpopo, the Northwest and KZN have recorded the largest job increases in the third quarter. The national economy created almost 400,000 jobs in the third quarter of this year. That's SAFM News. I'm Greg Khos.
In your sports this hour, Bavuma's injury still being assessed ahead of World Cup semi-final against Australia. Percy Tau urges South Africa to rally behind Bafana Bafana and F1 on the right track in Vegas after parking lot passed. More details at 5:30.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
Load shedding in Pretoria's Monument Park area, so the R21 very heavy again on that southbound run from Fountain Circle as you come into the Monument Park area. Joburg crash on the M2. This is westbound just at Crown, so it's a heavy backlog from the Joe Slovo Drive exit. And the N12 East, a ramp at Alberton onto the R59 South to turn off the N12 and pick up the R59 towards the Val. That is closed. There's a truck crash recovery that is about to get underway there, so you'll need to move either off at Camaro or off at the Voortrekker Road exit. Truck crash recovery underway, northern parts of KZN between Melmoth and Shawi, effectively, just up by Wessels. So traffic is being held both directions. Durban bound on the N2 at Prospect and remains heavy today, coming in from Tweedy Hill and Cape Town. A crash on the N7 north before Plattercliff Road. That's a big queue going up from Goodwood. It's causing a backlog on the N1 Service Road, passing Canal Walk where you link into the N7, and it's causing a big delay coming inbound from Parow on the the N1 approaching the N7 North off-ramp. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
We are going to Durban when Bafana face Benin in the FIFA 2026 World Cup qualifiers on Saturday, 18 November at the Moses Mabhida Stadium. Gates open at 12 p.m. and tickets are available for 50 Rand for adults and 20 Rand for children at Ticket Pro. Come dressed in your national colors to support Bafana to win prizes. If you are not in Durban, catch the game on SABC1 at 3 p.m. Also available on sabcsport.com.
Beyond the Headline on SAFM. Weekdays, 3 to 6 p.m.
It is 9 minutes after 5 o'clock. Coming up on the show in this hour, we speak to police spokesperson Brigadier Aldrin Sampear on the arrest of alleged sexual predators who were arrested in Gauteng. One of them actually is a foreign national from Britain. So we'll be speaking to Brigadier Aldrin Sampear around that story. Please note that story contains... that the story may contain content that may affect sensitive listeners, which also deals with the graphic content surrounding children. Please note that we have that alert there. So if you are traveling with children, or if you are... if you feel that you may be affected by this next conversation, please take note of that. That is the trigger warning that we are sending out. And then after that, we're in conversation with Professor Alex van der Heever, who's the chair of the Social Security System Administration and Management Studies at Wits School of Governance, as another employee from Mediclinic has stepped forward and confirmed that the private hospital group has been manipulating patient bills for financial benefit. Remember, we once spoke about the story a couple of months ago. Now, another employee has come forward. 0614-104107. You can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear, and our studio line is 086 000 2032.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Even Thabo Mbeki was much better.
Stop it.
Hi, man. I love this show, Aldrin. Owen from Jimston.
Siyabonga, Owen.
Hi, Aldrin. Tukula is so pleasant. I absolutely enjoyed that call. Oh, man. Just his take is so refreshing about, that president after Nelson Mandela. It's absolutely pleasant. You have amazing listeners and, people that participate on your show. Tibatsa from Campton Park.
Thank you, Tibatsa, and missed them a lot last week.
A very good afternoon, Aldrin Sampear, and everyone in there. Okay, the president that I can call back is Thabo Mbeki. Then, Thabo Mbeki, during his time, everything was better. If I remember very well, we were 7.50 against the dollar, rand. Then comes Zuma, he ruined everything. That now we are eating the fruits of what Zuma has done during his term. People they don't understand is that the president that comes, when he leaves, we are reaping his benefit. If he messed up, we are living in his mess. Like now we are living in the mess of Jacob Zuma. Thank you so much. This is Mafrika here in Askikuna region. Good evening.
Good afternoon, Aldrin. Good afternoon, listeners of Radio SAFM. Aldrin, to the previous speaker who spoke about the president, Cyril Ramaphosa. What about the companies and shares he bought in Alexander Forbes in the early 2000s, 2005, 2001? That was not on board or above board. The 27 companies he got shares, he opened up. The company registered to benefit from the Government Employment Pension Fund in Trevor Manuel. No, man. This president of ours is from the beginning. He was like corrupt. So, I mean, he equals Zuma for that matter, or whoever, all of them. Thank you, Maria April.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
It's 13 minutes after 5 o'clock. We're in conversation next with Brigadier Atlanta Mate, spokesperson for the South African Police Service, who have worked alongside the U.S. Department of Homeland Security to arrest 3 sexual predators who were involved in possession, distribution, and downloading of child pornography. I think we should say alleged sexual predators. The trio have made their first appearance before the Springs, Benoni, and Krugersdorp Magistrates Court, where the matters have been postponed pending further investigations. The children were also taken to a place of safety to unpack the work of the Serial Electronic Crime Investigations Unit. Brigadier Atlanta Mate now joining us on the line. Brigadier, good evening. Thank you so much for making time for us. Tell us about the work that you have been doing in collaboration with the U.S. as well as other departments.
Well, a very good evening and thank you for the opportunity. So in 2017, the SAPS established what we call the Serial and Electronic Investigations Unit, which falls under our Family Violence, Child Protection and Sexual Investigations Division. We did so to investigate, trace and arrest serial rapists, but also to apprehend suspects involved in the possession, distribution, accessing, and exposure of child pornography. So since this establishment, we have collaborated with international law enforcement agencies. We have international tip lines that on a daily basis work with our teams on to pick up offenses relating to child pornography. In the past year, these international tip lines were able to alert to our team 130,000 reports, which means 130,000 users in South Africa were identified as online sexual predators targeting children specifically. So in this particular operation, we collaborated with the USA Department of Homeland Security, in which they alerted to us that there are 27 targets, which are suspects in South Africa, that are involved in a ring where they share child pornography, they access it, they view it, and they also expose young kids to these type of acts. So in the past week, we have managed to arrest the first 3 of the 27 suspects. The first one is a British citizen who we found is in the country illegally. We found in his possession, following the forensic investigation at where he resides, we found him in possession of pictures of 2 children where they were committing acts of oral sex. There are videos where he's actually sexually assaulting the children and so on. After apprehending this particular suspect, he led us on to his friend in Benoni. When we arrived at that identified house, we found hundreds of pictures and videos of child pornography and so on. The third suspect was also apprehended in Krugersdorp. He too was also involved in this type of crime.
I saw one of the reports indicating that in some of the material that you were able to get, it involved a dog or dogs as well.
Absolutely. The first suspect, the British citizen that was arrested, we also found in his device a video where he's actually having sexual intercourse with the dog. So we charged him with bestiality amongst other charges that he will be facing. But what we have also realized through our investigation is that these pedophiles, if we can call them so, because they target young children, they target children from broken families. So they would act like father figures, uncle figures to children, where they would lure them by being their friends first and foremost. They would help them with homeworks and so on. They would buy them stuff and so on, so that they can win the trust of these particular pedophiles. So they basically groom them and so on. So what we want to alert parents out there is that it starts with, them befriending them, and then it starts off with touching on legs, the shoulders, and then it progresses to sexual acts. And you find that in most cases, the children are afraid to speak out because obviously they have that relationship with the suspect. They see them as this figure that they can look up to, that they can trust. So they are afraid. And remember, they at their age, they target children below the ages of 12 years old. A child does not know between right and wrong. So they do not know that this uncle touching them in that way is wrong. And in most cases, what we have found is that they tell the children to keep it a secret and so on. But we also feel like we need to warn parents and advise them to, talk to their children. I know it's a very difficult conversation to have, to start speaking about such things, but talk to your children about sexual predators, explain to them about potential online dangers and so on. But most importantly, instill parental control on your especially where children have devices like phones, like tablets. Always check on your children on what they're doing, what kind of apps they have on their devices. Check on their WhatsApp chat groups, because this is where these predators are utilizing these particular apps to reach to these children. They use platforms like your social media platforms to obviously prey on these children. So we felt that as the SAPAs, we need to alert parents to be extra vigilant and start having those conversations with children. But most importantly, monitor your kids' devices, because like I've indicated, last year alone, we picked up 130,000 users that are Googling child pornography. And these users belong to a ring, like I've indicated, together with the USA law enforcement agencies. We were able to identify 27 that are in the country. 3 have already been arrested. I know on Thursday we have another takedown operation in KwaZulu-Natal where we have identified a suspect. We will be executing that particular search and seize warrant that will relate to the devices, because what we have noted is that they keep all these videos, these pictures of young children on their devices. So the 3 have already appeared before various courts on Monday. Their cases were postponed for further investigation, and one of them was postponed for a bail application.
Yeah, and with this particular incident, can you confirm the gender of the children as well as the age group and where those children are currently?
Okay. So with the first arrest, which relates to the 63-year-old male British citizen, we have identified 2 children. One is a boy, one is a girl. And the third was a little boy that was also involved in this type of acts. We are still tracing those particular children. We have identified where they may be, but because of investigation purposes and for fear of probably the suspects have already communicated with the other members of this particular ring, we wouldn't want to communicate such information. But we do know that these 3 children are in the vicinity of Gauteng. So our team is on the ground. They are in the process of tracking down these children and obviously checking what the situation is at home. If indeed we need to then bring in social development to step in, because in when we were interviewing this British citizen, he indicated that these 2 children, the boy and the girl, are actually children of his friend. So we are on a tracing mission to try and really rescue these children. The dog, we were able to rescue it because we have removed the suspect from the house. It was
Okay.
found that the dog actually belongs to his sister.
Yeah, just a quick final one in your response. Are you working with search engines at all? Because if somebody goes onto the internet to search child pornography and the hits that come that come out of that, what's the search engine saying?
Okay, so the international tip lines that I alluded to earlier, they are working with Google. So we are utilizing our intelligence. I wouldn't go into detail because I don't want to now give people, obviously, the idea of how we do our investigations in order to track down these suspects. But we do work on a daily basis. They do alert us to these incidents, and these incidents are then characterized. So it will alert us if the child is in danger. We have the high risk, medium, and low risk.
Okay.
So when it's a high risk, our members really have to work around the clock to ensure that we trace these particular suspects, to ensure that we save children, because most of these children, like I've indicated, they are below 12 years old. They cannot differentiate between what is right and what is wrong. And like I've indicated, it's so important that parents be extra vigilant and really be hands-on in terms of having these conversations with their children, checking their devices.
Brigadier Atlandamante, thank you so much for your time. Spokesperson there for the South African Police Service.
Gautrain is for the legends who make moves to save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodes. It's for the bozzers who switch off the geyser when no one's home. And for our clever who get that there's food at home means exactly that. So when it comes to travel, make moves that save and pay from as little as 40 Rand from Sandton to Rhodes Station. Gautrain, for people on the move.
28 years ago, two great outfits of global rugby met in the Rugby World Cup final.
The Springboks and the All Blacks.
The Boks had a good day in the office in 1995 and lifted the Webb Ellis Cup on home soil. Amaboko have silenced the All Blacks once again.
At the Rugby World Cup Final France 2023 in search of their fourth title. La Zanzi Africa.
Back-to-back victors and four-time champions of the Rugby World Cup.
An extra seat has been booked for a flight back to Africa Tonga for the Webb Ellis Cup to travel with the world's best rugby national team. Amaboko! Congratulations to the Springboks.
Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
We're in conversation next with Professor Alex van den Heever, who is the chair of the Social Security Systems Administration and Management Studies at the Wits School of Governance. Another former employee from Mediclinic has stepped forward and confirmed that the private hospital group has been manipulating patient bills for financial benefit. According to News 24, the whistleblower said that at one hospital, the coding of a patient account had been altered to reflect intensive care unit, that is the ICU billing, knowing that fixed fees for ICU are higher than for the emergency room, which has a different cost center. To help us understand how bill manipulation works and the implications this has on the private healthcare system, we are joined by Professor Alex van den Heever. Prof, good evening, and thank you so much for making time for us.
Good evening.
How exactly does this work? But this is now according to what the second former employee has now told News 24, and how this ARM works.
Well, an alternative reimbursement mechanism has been an attempt to bundle a whole lot of procedures and treatments into a single sort of billing structure, so that you don't have to worry about individual line items, which are also subject to quite a lot of manipulation. But invariably, the way that these bundled reimbursement mechanisms have been set up is that there are carve-outs, there are elements that aren't included. And so this still exposes that billing structure to a degree of manipulation. So there's always been this tension in that there's a temptation, a tendency to pad the bill, and the medical scheme administrators are under pressure and sometimes in an arms race to manage the sort of errant billing that might come through. But in this case, there are two parties to this infraction. There is the medical scheme administrator and medical scheme itself, and they would be the ones who would take direct action against the hospital group if this proves to be correct.
Would they be able to quantify, though, if this has been an ongoing issue and being able to look back at the data that has been submitted and audit that?
They would have to, so in some cases, they would have to have evidence that, in fact, there's been manipulation. And I would expect that they would investigate it fully. I don't think that it will always be in the public eye, because what can happen is that these hospital groups are continuously invoicing medical schemes. So in many cases where a particular determination is made, a particular medical scheme administrator can effectively offset these any overcharges against future billing. So it's possible for the medical scheme to recover provided they have the information. But they have also introduced many techniques and systems to be able to flag when possible manipulation is occurring. It's not that they don't expect it, that they expect a squeaky clean billing process. They don't. They expect some manipulation, and they also expect errors. And so there is an intensive process of bill review that happens at a detailed level. But what they've done is that they've effectively reduced the complexity of the task by introducing the ARM type mechanism, which means that they really only have to analyze the carve-outs. The carve-outs are essentially treatments that will fall outside of that more bundled reimbursement mechanism.
So with this manipulation, would a medical practitioner also be involved, considering, for instance, in the particular case, they say that the person actually died outside of ICU, and then the details are changed and saying that the person actually died in ICU. Would a medical practitioner have to certify that?
It's not exactly clear on how they would have done the manipulation. Sometimes the invoicing is not done by the medical practitioners. It will be done by other administrative staff. So the clinical staff will really focus on the medical records as opposed on the sort of the clinical information. So it could be that there are, and this would be an important thing to determine whether or not this manipulation was sanctioned by at an organizational level, and that would be very problematic. And I would expect, as I said, there are two parties to this, that the medical scheme administrators would basically be taking action, and I would expect that at an organizational level, Mediclinic would be under huge pressure to let's say, make sure that they're good on any kind of error or infraction of this nature, because it is quite serious and effectively amounts to billing fraud.
Thank you so much for your time, Professor Alex van den Heeven, who is the chair of the Social Security System Administration and Management Studies at Wits School of Governance, and also used to work for the Council of Medical Schemes. It's a minute after 5:30, time for the news headlines with Greg Gross.
Thank you, Aldrin. A quick look at those headlines. The Deputy Chief Electoral Officer says a second voter registration weekend will only be announced after consultation over the election date has been concluded with the President. Provinces such as Limpopo, the Northwest and KZN have recorded the largest job increases in the third quarter, and the public healthcare system has been identified as not adequately educating patients on diabetic management as the country marks World Diabetes Day. A full update at the top of the hour.
SAFM, guiding you through the rush hour traffic.
And a final traffic update with Rob Byrne.
If you're driving in from Soweto, the N12 Southern Bypass, and you want to off-ramp and turn down towards the Vaal area of the Reading interchange, that ramp is currently closed. So N12 eastbound, no access onto the R59 south due to a truck that's jackknife. Also, Joburg's M2 east is closed down today between Main Reef Road and the Crown interchange, and that is putting a whole pile of pressure back through the Crown and Mayfair areas. There's some really significant backlogging going on through there. Load shedding in Pretoria at Monument Park, so the R21 south remains heavy. Esky and Patheli from Marabastad up towards the Potco depot, that is a super heavy queue heading out of central Pretoria today. Durban side, a collision on the N2 to north at Prospecton, so very heavy from the bottom of, or the top of Tweedy Hill, if you like, coming through from Amonsamtoti. And Cape Town, the N7 crash at Plattekloof Road has been cleared. All lanes are open, but it's left a lot of backlogging. N1 inbound, N1 Service Road outbound, and some very slow-go traffic on the main road, both ways between Cork Bay and Muizenberg. High volumes, plus some load shedding in the area as well. Rob Byrne, SAFM Traffic.
This is SAFM Sports with Duming Khapele.
And Dumi here with a final sports update. So is Themba Bavuma in or is he out?
Well, according to Proteas Limited Overs coach Rob Walter, says that they're still assessing Bavuma ahead of Thursday's semi-final against Australia. They still doubt that he will start after sustaining a hamstring injury in their final league match against Afghanistan last Friday. But what we know is that he did take part in an optional training on Monday and he did more fitness drills last night. And one thing for sure is that he is making good progress. If fit, Walter says that he will play despite a lack of runs in the tournament. And perhaps you're asking yourself, why are they pushing so hard for Bavuma to play? Well, he's been one of South Africa's best batsmen in the 50-over game this year. And before the World Cup, he was South Africa's highest run scorer. And he actually played a crucial role in South Africa qualifying for the World Cup. So Coach Walter is saying that, listen, he will get back to his runs and get those runs in. So let's just be hopeful that he will play.
What's when the dynamite comes in?
Small packages. Then in football, Banyana have been nominated among the Women's National Team of the Year for the upcoming CAF Women's Award. Meanwhile, Mamelodi Sundowns ladies have been nominated in the Women's Club of the Year category after winning the Hollywood Bet Super League, the COSAFA qualifiers, and they have qualified for the semi-finals of the CAF Champions League. And just taking a look at other categories, both Banyana head coach Desiree Ellis and Sundowns ladies head coach Jerry Shabalala have been nominated in the Women's Coach of the Year category for their exploits this past year. In addition, Banyana shot stoppers Kaylin Swart, who plays for JVW at a club level, and Downs ladies Andile Dlamini have been nominated in the Goalkeeper of the Year category, while young Banyana starlet Tubelihle Shamase, who plays for UJ at a club level, is on the shortlist for the Young Women's Player of the Year. And last but not least, Sundowns ladies and Banyana star Lebogang Ramalepe has been nominated in the CAF Interclub Women's Player of the Year category. Then moving on to Bafana, Vice Captain Percy Tau believes that with good support from the nation, the team can realize its dream of qualifying for the 2026 FIFA World Cup in North America. Now, Bafana start their qualification route to the next World Cup with a home game against Benin in Moses Mabhida, or at the Moses Mabhida Stadium in Durban on Saturday, before travelling to Rwanda next Tuesday. The other three teams in the group are Nigeria, Zimbabwe and Lesotho, from which only the group winners are guaranteed qualification. And according to Tau, he says that support from the nation will be very crucial.
Want everyone also to believe in us. I think we believe so much in ourselves, and we also want South Africa to show that they believe in us. I mean, it does happen that we lose games or we draw games, but we still need the support to be there, because it shouldn't only come in when we win or we go to AFCON or to the World Cup. It should always be there with us. And now we will make sure that we do our best in the World Cup qualifiers to make sure that South Africans are happy.
Then Kaizer Chiefs football manager Bobby Motaung has not given a clear answer on whether there'll be a change of approach in their search for a new coach to improve from the merry-go-round at the club in recent years. Chiefs are now on their 8th coach in a space of just 5 years, with Molefi Ntseki most recently lasting just 4 months in the job. And according to Motaung, he blames the impatience of the fans for this high turnover of coaches.
It boils down to patience and the plan. Now, with the pressures we're having now, with the mentality of people now, people are not patient. I don't know this culture comes from where. Chiefs supporters have always been patient, but all of a sudden, we have these issues of pressure now. Some of us are patient, some of us have a vision, but the vision can only work if people are together and have shared the vision, like the chairman was saying about the vision of building Kaizer Chiefs. 53 years later, it's still there. But there were bumps and rides, smooth riding. Sometimes things didn't work. Sometimes, I mean, even in the past, we've had top players who lost. Even Dr. Kumalos, there were seasons where we had drought, and but we managed to soldier on and build. It's just a cultural change of today's people to bend things and to throw things and fight. We don't know where that comes from. It's a new culture, but I think together, if people can reconnect, we can have a vision and a focus. A vision and a focus is not an overnight success.
In rugby, World Cup host France are set to host the Springboks and All Blacks in the next 2 November test windows. Leblanc took on both teams at the recent concluded World Cup on home soil, beating the All Blacks in the opening fixture before losing to the Springboks by 1 point in the quarterfinals. And according to America's Rugby Championship, France have dodged playing in New Zealand and South Africa in July 2024 and will instead travel to Argentina to play a 2-test series after the Six Nations. Ending things off with motorsport news, Bernie Eccleston says that the sport is finally on the right track, the third time around in Las Vegas. Red Bull's dominant triple world champion, Max Verstappen, and his rivals will be speeding down the famed strip this Saturday, past the landmark casinos and hotels in a nighttime spectacular. Now, the track that is called Las Vegas Strip Circuit has 17 corners with the barrier-lined layout wrapping around the heart of the most iconic area of Vegas. With that said, it's a wrap from my side. Don't forget to tune in into Top Sport with Michael Abramson. That's from 7 till 8 p.m. For SAFM's Sport, I am Dumin Kapele Mudimugio.
Dear Africa Chipembe,
Siyabonga.
Rialeboga. Thank you for experiencing the Rugby World Cup France 2023 in your language of choice on SABC radio stations and SABC TV channels.
This journey is fulfilling and exhilarating when you are on board.
The front row belongs to Africa Tonga.
Brought to you by SABC Sport.
For the love of the game.
SFM invites you to our inaugural public lecture, delivered by the former Chief Justice, Mogoeng. The theme of the lecture is constitutionalism and upholding the rule of law in South Africa. Has corruption and malfeasance eroded the moral fabric of the democratic dispensation? The lecture will take place on the 29th of November 2023 at the SABC M1 Studios in Johannesburg. Secure your seat by emailing us at info@safm.co.za.
SAFM, leading the conversation.
Economic news on SAFM. Facts and figures you can count on.
And it's time for a MoneyWeb market update with Jimmy Moyaha. Jimmy, what's coming up on the show?
Good evening, Aldrin. Good evening to the listeners. On today's show, we take a look at a company called Storage. They are a rental storage company listed as a real estate investment trust on the JSE. They reported their interim results for the first half of the year. We speak to their CEO and get a sense of how they performed. We speak to the founder of Convergence Partners, Andile Ngaba, a very well-known businessman with over 30 years of experience in the telecom space in South Africa. His private equity fund has recently increased their stake in an African venture that looks to build broadband and telecoms infrastructure that is not network specific, or that is basically network agnostic. So they're looking to increase the infrastructure developments within the African continent as a whole. We take a look at a report put out by NIQ South Africa saying that consumers bought more liquor than ambient food in the third quarter of the year. So clearly we are back to our pre-pandemic tendencies, and we just take a look at what those tendencies look like, how they are different now that we have elevated interest rate levels and those sorts of things. And then we also take a look at, because Tuesday is our property feature, we take a look at the collective home buying trend that's emerged. People are sort of pooling together because of these higher interest rates, buying things collectively, almost as a stokvel. I remember I wrote a piece about that, about stokvels and the importance that they play within alternative investments. So it'll be interesting to see what FNB Home Finance has to say about that. But before we get to that, we have Henku Creer keeping an eye on the markets for us throughout the day. It looks like a very good day on the markets, which is something that we haven't had too many of considering where we closed the week last week. But it is a follow-through from yesterday, and we did get some important data out of the US that probably stirred this on. But I'll let Henku provide us with those details. Good afternoon, Henku. Thanks so much for taking the time. 4% on resources. I'm smiling.
Yes. Hello, Jimmy. Hi, Aldrin, and good evening to the listeners. Look, Jimmy, the U.S. inflation rate is lower than expected. That's that very important data that came out of the U.S. this afternoon, which you referred to earlier. So with that U.S. inflation rate a lot lower than expected, we see that the bond rates are down, but that company stock prices jump up, and that the rand also a lot stronger at the end of the day. And then, of course, also we had that great news that our local unemployment rate and figure is also lower than expected. But let's have a look at how joyful the U.S. markets are after the publication of that lower than expected inflation rate. We see that U.S. markets throughout the bank at this stage about 2% stronger. Who knows where it's going to end, but really a great start for U.S. markets today on this Tuesday. And then European stocks also finished 1.5% stronger at the end of the day, but not nearly as good as the JSE finished today. The all-share index finished 2.5% stronger, and that was at a level of 73,444 points. The financial index also 2.5% up, and then that resources index, like you mentioned, 4.3% stronger at the end of the day, and the industrial index gained 1.5%. Let's have a look at some of the companies that contributed to these sub-indexes or some indices, like we see Anglo finishing 5.5% up, Richmond and Glencore each 4.5% stronger, First Rand finishing 3% up, Naspers, Prosus, as well as Standard Bank each gained 2%, and BHP finished 1.5% stronger. Also a great Tuesday for Amplats, which gained 9% today. Sibanye-Stillwater finishing 7.5% up. Harmony, Implats, as well as Remgro each gained 6.5%. And ARM, as well as Kumba, each finished 5.5% stronger. Not that great day for a company like Bidcorp, which lost 4% today. SPAR finished 2% weaker, and Sappi, Italtal, and Pick n Pay each lost 1%. On the commodities market, the price of gold currently $1,966 an ounce. Silver on the dot, $23. Platinum trading at $886 an ounce. And palladium now above $1,000 and trading at $1,015 an ounce. Brent crude now sitting at $83.53 a barrel, and the rand really looking a lot better today. Now trading at 18 Rand 35 to the US dollar, 22 Rand 85 to the pound, 19 Rand 85 to the euro, and 11 Rand 85 to the Australian dollar. A Bitcoin will cost you $36,600, and that's more or less 683,000 Rand for a whole Bitcoin. Yes, Jimmy, that in short is how your markets look today, but what a great Tuesday, and let's see what the rest of this week holds.
What a great Tuesday indeed. Thank you for that update, Henku. We're definitely going to keep an eye on the markets. I'm really interested to see if we are going to breach that 18 Rand level on the Rand against the dollar. I remember speaking to David Shapiro at some point, and he said he's calling 17.50 there. But we'll keep all of our listeners updated as the market movements continue to unfold. For now, Aldrin, it's back to you and the team. We're going to catch up with the listeners just after 6.
Thank you so much, Jimmy. Back again just after 6 o'clock. We're taking your calls on 086 000 2032. You can also drop us a voice note on 0614 104 107 and an X at Aldrin Sampear.
The beauty, power, elegance, and speed of horse racing.
The passion at the heart of horse racing diligence.
Where these magnificent creatures and their skilled jockeys compete for glory.
Racing today.
Catch it live on Mondays to Fridays on SABC Sport on DTT Channel 4. Also available on SABC Plus and SABCSport.com.
Hashtag Horses of Great Character. Brought to you by SABC Sport. For the love of the game.
Hashtag SAFMBTH.
Afternoon, Aldrin. Aldrin, before I come to the drugging industry, I used to work with another boss of mine in Forisbeck, in the far Free State, in the small town in Free State. The guy we used to work to dig the boreholes, especially for the for the people who live in the plot, those people who stay in the plot, where there is no water supply via the pipe from municipality. If I remember very well, he used to say that he charged per boreholes plus or minus 60,000 per one boreholes. So I don't understand. Maybe there are different boreholes that I don't know, but I worked for that guy for about 3 years. I don't remember saying that he charged 1 million per one boreholes, but I think it was plus or minus 60,000. Thank you.
Hi, this is Samora in Cape Town. The problem with that borehole story isn't really even the fact that they're being overcharged. The problem is the fact that the state is willing to pay.
Yeah.
I mean, you and I in our normal regular lives, if you walked into a shop for a loaf of bread and it was being sold at 250 Rand, you'd probably take a picture and laugh or want to speak to a manager, but you'd walk out there and never come back again. Or, for example, with me, I've got a problem right now with my garage door motor. If someone came and said they will repair it for 100,000 Rand, I'd tell them to go away and F off. So the state is willing to pay regardless of what the amount is. You can't really, in this case, just blame the people who are quoting prices. Blame the people who are paying, which is the government.
Yeah, which is the people who have been entrusted with the power to actually sign off on deals like this. Now, this is the individual who's a representative of the state, and that's why the SIU has found that there is a corrupt relationship between the state officials as well as the company.
Hi, Aldrin and the SAFM family. I'm shocked about a borehole, 5 borehole costing 7 million Rand. Wow. Just like a borehole, 200 meters deep, only 60,000 Rand. Imagine if price was right, how much money could the municipality have saved? But they could have wasted it on something else also.
Yeah.
Thank you, Hendy, welcome.
And you know, when I was looking at the story, and by the way, this is 7 million overcharged. 7 million overcharged. So over and above what the consultants would have said that this would be the amount. So it's 7 million on top of that particular amount. Still trying to figure out what the entire amount was for the 5 boreholes, but 7 million was being overcharged for those five boreholes. So you have the Minister of Finance that has sent out these what do they call them again? These notices to government entities that you need to curb your spending. You need to tighten your belt. And then you have civil rights organizations that are telling you that that's going to affect service delivery, and especially the poor are going to suffer the most. And then you hear stories like these. On top of that, our Chief Justice, who was the chairperson of the State Capture Commission of Inquiry, not being able to find assistance from the state attorney because of issues relating to budget and money and so forth, has opted to being assisted pro bono by private law firms. And then you hear stories like these. Ritu Mates is joining us from Welkom. Good evening.
Good evening, Aldrin. How are you?
Good. How's it, man?
I'm good. Yes, Aldrin, I think the president that I would recall, I would recall Kgalema Motlanthe. I feel like we didn't give him a chance as South Africans, even though he served as president for a short period. But I feel like he's a man of integrity, other than what we saw with the last 2 presidents and, the current president. Because, I mean, all of them have their good side and their bad side. Kgalema Motlanthe, we never really got to see his good or bad side.
Well, he saw through the disbandment of the Scorpions.
Sorry?
He saw through the disbandment of the Scorpions.
Yeah, but like I said, that was only for a short period.
Yeah,
I mean,
in that short period, he saw through the disbandment of the Scorpions.
Yeah,
Which
but
was a
remember
party
also-
decision, of course.
Yeah, it was a party decision, but I think in also other things he would have done better, you know.
Okay. Now we don't know. Now we don't know if he would have done better. But thank you, Ritumetse
Yeah.
there from Velcom. Let's go to Pretoria. Richard, good evening.
Evening, Aldrin. How are you?
Good, how's it?
I'm fine. I'm just looking at the president. I wouldn't want. I think the other caller said he should have.
Hi, Richard? Richard, are you still there? Okay, we're going to see if we can try and call Richard back. Just quickly, Bongs on X saying that I would take President Mbeki's international relations and make Umkhululwa Mutlante a minister without a portfolio ukumlaya nje for the disbanding of the Scorpions. Let's go to Silo, who's joining us from Mukupane. Good evening. I didn't see that one coming. Yeah, good evening, Silo.
Thanks, good. Aldrin, you know, this story of the boreholes.
Yeah.
I think Osas Kezi did a story about this one, especially when on Tuesday. Remember, yesterday you told me about how we deal with the municipality and so forth.
Yes.
If you go back and even if you ask him, there were a number of guys who has cost state more money and so forth. And I think the previous caller is right. The state is willing to pay this nonsensical amount of money, Aldrin. So we don't know where to cry to now, because it is the state that's always misusing the money each and every day. So it is just some deals that they do, and then which does not help the community at large.
And then at the end of the day, we go and borrow money.
You can
and
see
our
that
debt
other
costs increase.
How much are we now? Trillion something?
Yeah, the debt cost just keeps on escalating.
Yeah, but anyway,
Okay.
let's keep on voting. Thank you,
Silo there from Mukopane. Let's take your voice notes on 0614104107, and you can also drop me an X at Aldrin Sampear.
Aldrin, about these claims, that I always wonder what happened to the internal audit, the internal controls, the external audit, the Auditor General, and everyone else. Why do these people, how do they get allowed to make these kind of appointments when there are so many other control measures that's already in place and that ought to prevent these kind of things from happening?
Aldrin, it is so unbelievable. You know, in the Northwest, for instance, for a 120-meter borehole, we pay less than 100,000, everything included, the surveyor to drill and also to equip, buy a JoJo tank and a stand. You can't, okay, for argument's sake, maybe you can spend around 120, but you can't exceed 200,000. That is sheer corruption. It is really unbelievable. As a black government, we are not going anywhere, indeed. And I can assure you, people who benefited from that corruption are people who are the usual suspects, who are going around in very beautiful Mercedes-Benzes, but the masses, the poor masses, are at the end of the day the ones who are supposed to serve. This is very great. It's creatiness from the side of the politicians. Thank you.
You are listening to Aldrin Sampear on SAFM.
Well, we've come to the end of our voyage. Thank you so much for choosing Flight SAFM BTH 326 with me, Aldrin Sampear. Today we're playing out with the Prince KB featuring Msaki, Fetch Your Life. And our parting shot is from John D. Rockefeller, who once said, "Don't be afraid to give up the good to go for the great." And our credits this evening are read by Meta.
SAFM listeners, you have arrived at your destination, courtesy of the BTH team. You have been inspired, informed, and to some extent, entertained. Here's to the production team, Temba, Kanya, Vusani, Mock, and Lundi. And behind the mic, we have Dumi and my captain, Aldrin Sampear. Have a wonderful evening. Until tomorrow.
This is Aldrin Sampear on Beyond the Headline.
I was waiting for Meta to do the SAA thing. The Hambani Kahle. Remember to love each other and lead with compassion. Dotsins, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Someone who's living out here.